Welcome to the Dynasty Podcast. We are back. It's been a while. Good to be back here with my buddy, Benjamin Jesus Ziegler, and the Jillian one. No, I'm sorry, Georgia, who has graced us with his presence yet again. We're excited to be back together. It's been a few weeks, do some scheduling conflicts, but we're back today to review the MAC teams and talk about some other stuff. How's everybody doing? Ben, what's new with you in the Costa Rica world?
Yeah, I let some tourists in my bar watch the end of an NBA Finals game and was open 15 minutes late, and the police came and shut me down for 15 days. So I've been on a vacation that I didn't want with no plans. So here I am. We should have probably banged out 7 podcasts in the last week.
Yeah, but you're always a busy man. Did they shut you down per minute? So 15 days a day per minute, or is that just a coincidence?
No, because I think they wrote on the form it was 45. They always trying to exaggerate and stuff here just to like cover their backs. I don't know, but that's the 15 day closure, the first offense, and then 30 the second offense. So,
well, you are
rule breaker. They gave us 1 more hour, though, so now we can open till 10.
Oh, wow. That's great for a nightlife bar atmosphere that likes to,
yeah. So all the UFC main events, we can show the first fight and tell everyone to get the fuck out after that.
Yeah. Great for business. Great strategy there. Georgia, what's up with you, man? I think you've been traveling a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing is, with all that time on your hands, you think you would send me some decent fucking trade offers there, Jesus. I mean, what else you got to do?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So we just got back into town. We were traveling in Hawaii, so I actually did not get to see the first preseason game, but I've been following things, and I'm excited. I think that the next week or two should be very, very active, although I'm not seeing that trending right now, and I don't understand why. I think this is the perfect, because in a few weeks a lot of the questions are going to be answered. And then once everybody has all the information, everyone's going to tighten up. Yeah. So I think now is a really prime time to make some deals.
I think it's been interesting for me to follow as well. Roman made the point that his team was set and everybody kind of has that feeling coming off the auction and then maybe making a few corrections off the auction. But yeah, it's been relatively quiet. I missed everyone and the banter in the chat room, and we need to light the fire because we're almost there. What, 4 weeks out from opening day? So next few weeks are crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, this is, I want a deal now, and I'm curious about who the guys like on my roster, because they heard a little blurb or something, and vice versa. And I think that now is the time where you can make profit on deals, because again, like I said, once the cuts are made and everybody knows and the depth charts are out, now it's not like, well, geez, I think I'm trading for something. It's like, nope, this is what the trade is. This is the cost. And, and then I think we're gonna have a little bit of a lull until the trade deadline.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, for me, it's, I'm being a little bit cautious and a little conservative anyway, but I wanted to see some of the preseason games and just kind of where the pieces fall a little bit before I started making any more moves. But everybody's in a different position, and as we talk through the teams today, we'll kind of re-enter that conversation and showing where some people are at and maybe what the different strategies are for them. Because I'll be honest, your division is not really stacked to be fair. You and Argo are pretty much looks like the lead dogs. Maybe Sin is up there as well, but it's not a lot of excitement coming out of the MAC division this year. So I don't know if anybody has any difference of opinions, but it
was a little
didn't leave my research very excited. I'll tell you that.
I expected, when I knew Argo and Georgia were in there, that was just going to be a shit show, but they're going to have some easy wins. That's for sure. But it's interesting. We'll get to it. It's not like there's a lot of bad teams. There's just quite a few teams that are clearly rebuilding or kind of have some strategies that need to work. We'll get there.
So I would like to interject very quickly because you guys, it is my division after all. So I feel like maybe I should defend this shit talking you guys are all throwing at it.
Yeah, like
there's nothing like
out the division. Like we got the best division, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah. What the first thing that you can think of, Corey, is you can go fuck yourself because this is the winner of this league is coming out of this division. There's not a question about it. And it's not going to be Argo and Sin City. So the division, just by that one particular team, is going to be the best division in
So
the
you're
league.
saying you're going to win this year based on
Yes.
Okay. I just want to
Secondly,
okay. Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that wholeheartedly, but that's okay.
Well,
I got to review your team today,
okay.
so that's
and
fair.
I have a big bone to pick with Ben for what you just said there. How dare you comment on our division last year when you were in that shit box division where I believe you went 11-1, and then you were complaining because of how the playoff layout.
I didn't
So,
get
yeah,
the fucking
I
buy.
have-
That's
I
fine.
now-
I think
I
you
now
should get
have
the
a
buy in a
normal-
shit division.
I now have a normal schedule, and now we'll see how my record is this year, because that's what it should have been last year, which would have put to bed that whole ridiculous discussion you and Argo were having.
Same.
Well, you're definitely coming in hot today. We love that about you, Sean. It's good to have Georgia back on the show. And I'm not even going to call you Sean for the rest of the show because we definitely have Georgia here in the studio today. So that's good stuff.
Happy to be
I
here.
wanted to touch real quickly with just what you guys were seeing. Any interesting news or in camps that jumped out at you, Ben, either from the Vikings or in general? What's sticking out?
Yeah, see, this is the fucking shit I hate about this podcast, because I'm going to go out and talk about how much I fucking love people, and then I'm not going to get to trade for them.
You can be general. You can. There's a sneaky way of doing
Ben
it.
likes this guy. Okay, well, I went and got him in some spots. So KJ Osborne right now for the Vikings camp is like above and beyond clear number 3. Eddie Westbrook hasn't adjusted really well to the playbook. I think talent-wise, they're probably close. I just don't think he's there. And then Marsette's pretty raw and he's not there. But Marsette looks like he's at least set for a kick return or a punt return job.
Don't forget about Prohl though. Come on, let's
Dude, Prohl is not making the roster. I'm sorry. Like, unfortunately for him, like especially KJ Osborne was probably a guy that I thought was on the roster bubble, and this guy's like every single practice making plays. Now you can't overblow up these types of things, but that wide receiver 3 spot is up for grabs. And it's going to depend on how many 2 tight end sets we really run, but somebody got to be running out there. So I thought that's pretty interesting. And then, man, you know what? I was just looking at this Georgia, and I swear to God, the reason Josh Palmer is on your roster and contract killers is because of this man right here and all my yapping about him. And I'll tell you what, Josh Palmer, I saw something absolutely ridiculous that came on the news from Blue Chip. Where they get Fantasy Pros, I think is where they get that, and it says he's taking on the Michael Thompson-esque role, and I was like, okay, or Michael Thomas, yeah, and I'm like, I'm as big of a Josh Palmer fan as exists, but let's pump the brakes just a tad. However, if you dive into the beat writers for the Chargers, he's outperforming Mike Williams. He's outperforming everyone, and it's not even close. And not only that, the reason where this, Michael Thomas thing comes in is his route running and his body positioning is so crisp that he's able to get receptions in every level of the game. I even saw some crazy fucking fade route that he caught where it was like it was thrown to the wrong side and he just literally just turned and like kind of tapped his feet and it looked like really effortless. And when you see like wide receivers be able to make like really over athletic plays that don't look hard, that's pretty interesting. So I didn't think Josh Palmer was going to be this good, this fast, or at least blowing up this much in camp. He seems to have the lock on that number 3. And I don't know. I think they're looking at Mike Williams as just a deep threat. So I don't know. I might be down on Mike Williams shares because they might just try and get him burning deep and doing slant routes and let Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer run wild, right?
I tried to make a trade with Georgia for Palmer this week, and he didn't even respond. So he must have been in Hawaii. With
man.
Because
diamond hands.
That was a valiant effort at a trade.
It was Xavier Jones in a second rounder for Palmer. I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
All right.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So I will say this: if you guys recall the draft, I was trading back like a maniac, and one of the things that I was trying to do was acquire assets because I actually really wanted to take Palmer. And I took Mitchell because I wanted to do the San Francisco running back stack prior to Wilson getting hurt. But Palmer was a guy I absolutely 100,000% wanted. I was I'm sure I made you offers at the time when you were on the clock. And when you
Probably.
took him, my heart broke. But I will tell you now, Darden, who I also took in CK, that was because of you.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was very loud and clear. Tried to even taunt you about it, but you were probably
Him and
off on
Brady
your,
are clicking, man, and he looks great in camp. But like,
he's available for
Yeah.
trade.
Just
I
remember,
just
we
don't see.
we
I don't
see
see
this
where he's
every
getting
year, though.
snaps. I don't
We
see
do-
where he's getting snaps this year. So it's
No.
like I think his
Down the
future is
road.
going to be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
We see it every
He's-
year. Someone's a camp superstar and then relegates to getting about 15 snaps in the season. I don't think that's the case for Josh Palmer.
You mean like Adam Thielen,
Adam Thielen?
Mankato State,
I'm
undrafted,
saying it
walk-on?
can go both ways. Like you just have to be careful. Like I'm not snap calling, fantasy pros, beat writers, information quickly and making bad moves because of it. But
I was going to say that reminds me of actually Argo in our league, because every preseason, everyone he's running his mouth about how great he is, and he's all ready to go. He doesn't have to make any more trades, and he has 6 players he can start, and then kind of tails off.
we're gonna see. You'll have every chance to talk about Argo's team today. I'm going to be neutral, be a little Switzerland on Argo, but let's dive into it.
I got another interesting
Go for
tidbit there for the Vikings that I don't mind sharing. I hope this doesn't fuck me in other leagues before I get who I need. But I think we were bringing up in a conversation previously, somebody was asking if DJ Wanham was going to end up getting that defensive end spot. And I thought Stephen Weatherly was going to get it for the Vikings. But it looks like what they're doing is they're now running Wanham and Weatherly and Daniil Hunter as outside linebacker on majority of these snaps. So they're playing 3 DNs with one not hand in the dirt, which is actually, if you were banking on a third Vikings linebacker, you're probably fucked. Like, I don't think they like any of the third linebackers. So they're just like, we're so stacked at the end. We're just going to let these guys drop in coverage, and they're going to throw like 3D tackle and 2 DN lineups. They're going to throw, their defensive line right now is so stacked with the 3D tackles that are basically elite. And then they have really good depth at the end. Like, it's going to be really interesting.
Ben, is that why you went after the Richardson on that deal that we recently made?
Absolutely. I mean, just because I think Richardson's a beast, but I knew that they all are different enough, and I knew they could both, like, all 3 could be on the lineup, right? Like, and I think we're going to see that. You're going to see Pierce and then Richardson might pop out as a D end, and then next to him might be like Wanham or someone like that. And so when you have things like that, it's like it's really interesting because we're always trying to like predict snap counts, right? I mean, snap counts and opportunities and pass rush opportunities and tackle opportunities. And all of a sudden you have these DNs who are going to be playing outside linebacker. That means they're going to get a little extra love at tackling, And I know for a fact the Vikings definitely cannot do this in the secondary at safety, right? So we could play a lot of corners because we're super deep at corners and play a lot of DNs, but we're not deep at linebacker and we're not deep at safety at all. So I think you're going to see a lot of the percentages in these counts coming on, when it's going not dime and stuff like that. You're going to see just all corners, and then you're going to see like a lot of these. It's just always going to be 2 linebackers, and the third linebacker is going to be one of these DNs. That's what it feels like coming out of camp.
Corey, what's your take on the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, you lost me in the first 30 seconds there, but that's cool. I mean, Ben is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff. I don't get that deep. I just don't. But that's how you win. That's how you're amazing. That's how you get the nickname Jesus. You know what I mean?
Hey man, all I know is I listened to like 5 podcasts that said Josh Sweat is going to face fuck the league. So I'm looking forward to telling Argo he's.
I would like to listen to that podcast if they actually use that terminology. I think we could learn a lot from it. But
I think only we use that.
It might have been elite. They might have said elite.
Oh, okay, elite.
Going to be elite.
Yeah,
that might have been. I face fuck elite, same thing.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? Simile or metaphor? No, it's
Hey,
use a thesaurus to get it is what I'm trying to say here.
I'd rather face
I'll
fuck
put it
than
in
be
the
elite,
dictionary.
personally.
Well, I mean, we could have this discussion all day long. So,
right,
boys, I want to
it.
jump into it and then leave some a little bit of time for just kind of an open discussion at the end of the pod. So, Georgia, why don't you take us away on your analysis? We're going to keep them snappy and clean. I believe you were going to start off with Hot Mess, and then you have Casey Mean Machine and Raganork, or how the hell you pronounce store's name.
Yeah. So in an interest to try to keep it tight, I actually kind of wrote it out. So I'm going to read off of some notes.
I like that. I like that a lot. We're
I
learning.
kind of and I kind of took my own my own take on every guy who's done the division analysis. Some guys give letter grades, positions, everything else. So I kind of basically gave my take on this process is we can all look at each other's rosters and kind of pick out, oh, that's a good guy, that's a bad guy, and that kind of a thing. So I kind of do that briefly, and then also just for fun, kind of approach it like if if it was an orphan that I was taking over.
Exactly.
What I would do today, and it's not to say that I'm smarter than everybody. It's just what I personally my approach would be. So starting with Hot Mess, I got quick 2020. He was 8-4 in the bottom division, which got him second place. He was 11th in the seed heading into the playoffs, and he made it to the second round against Fleece, which I think is a successful year because you're making some money back, and he has a good start. He's got some pieces. I noted he has all of his picks in 2020, which is interesting when teams do that when they just have only their own picks on their in that department, because it makes me think like, well, they must not want to acquire or trade picks, and it just kind of sometimes give the impression to me that that aspect of dealing with them is off the table. But anyways, he has all of his picks. His running backs, he's got Chubb and Mike Davis, which are good, with some decent depth there with Madison and Lindsey. He's got a good 3 with Cup, Samuel, and Sutton at the wide receiver, but not much behind him. Maybe Renfro. He's obviously very light at tight end. Hayden Hurst was a potential thing a couple years ago. Now he seems to be gone. And on the IDP side, it's okay. It's a little bit light. I mean, there's not much at DT. He's got a couple starting DNs, but just scrubs behind him. He's light at linebacker. He's got Edmonds and Jamin Davis, and then again, just not super deep. And again, same thing at safety. He's got 2 starters, and that's about it. So my take on it is that I think he's got a potential playoff team once again, but I think that because he's so shallow, he's gonna have to avoid a lot of injuries, and then I don't know how he's going to do with the bye weeks to absorb the zeros. So he could end up at some of the positions he may put in. My kind of synopsis is he'd be in contention to sneak in the playoffs, but be really lucky to survive the first round. If I took it over, I think I would kind of look at it as time to pick a lane, either going after it or maybe taking a step back and trying to build some depth. His team's top assets are all in their second contract, except for Jamin Davis. So it's really time to win or sell, but it's, getting late at this point to sell because we're already past the draft. His draft this year, I thought, was a disaster. He had 1 first-round pick, and he took Jamin Davis, a linebacker. And, good play. He was one of the guys that I liked as a linebacker, but he's got so many depth needs. He could have taken Nico Collins, Sammy Brown, Eskridge, St. Brown, Chuba Hubbard, or Stevenson out, at the running back position. Instead of Davis at $25, he could have had a Chandler Jones or Bud Dupree for an extra $50, kind of a thing. So I just don't like the first round linebacker picks, and I never will. Or he could have traded that pick back and acquired, picks throughout the draft. So I just didn't like the pick. If I took over, I think that team is probably headed towards a cliff pretty soon, with way too many assets losing values this year. So I would be making trades. I'd be moving Cup, Edmonds. I don't know why he's got Madison on his roster. I would have moved him a long time ago to back up. What's his face up in Minnesota? Cook. And cash that shit in. And trading Davis is really out of the question because he's not going to get back the value he put into him. So
I'm just slightly surprised that you're picking apart his depth, because when I looked at your team, and we don't have to get into it yet, I would consider your depth plays about the same on the IDP side at least, and probably I think he has just as much or more depth on the running back position, not the wide receiver position. But it's interesting that you're picking apart his depth, because I don't look at your team and see that much depth either. So
Well,
I'll
listen,
interject a little bit as well.
you can
just
talk
real
about
quick.
my depth when it's my turn. Damn it.
No,
But
I'm
let me
just saying it's an
if I-
interesting point you're making because like you just kind of threw Hunter Renfro into the abyss there, and Renfro is a punt returner and someone that has been very consistent over the last 2 years. Well, whether or not he is again this year, we'll see. But I think he's a pretty good fair play for a fourth wide receiver on a team. Anyway,
well,
go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's you're not going to find a lot of rosters that have all depth. You know, some are all top heavy, and there's a combination of the two in here. I've looked over this real quick, and I didn't think much of it. But then at the running back position, I definitely would rather have what he's got. He's got two starting running backs that'll get like bulk, and then he has Madison who gets snaps and then becomes a workhorse when Cook goes down. So I don't think it's that bad. And I agree with Corey. I think his wide receiver core is just definitely like it's pretty solid for at least the next couple of years, especially if you're going for a super pod next year. Like it's actually setting up pretty nicely for that year. Hayden Hurst is probably this year only, but the linebackers, I was actually surprised in the linebackers. I know you don't like the Jamin Davis pick, but he actually got really good deals in the auction, so that he probably didn't think he was going to get. So maybe he thought he really desperately needed somebody as a stay wars. But I mean, to me, Spillane at $18, holy fuck, how did that happen? It happened because I didn't have fucking cap. That's how it happened. How the fuck did Robert Spillane go to $18 fucking after what I saw last year? Unfucking believable. The guy's starting middle linebacker, fucking 3-down linebacker right now.
I mean, if you look at his numbers from 2020 on the screen here too, I know this is just kind of, you can't use this as the Bible, but like he's predicted to score more points and have a better year than he did last year. So calling him just a throw-in linebacker to me is, I don't know.
Well, no. First of all, Robert Spillane came in when Vince Williams got hurt last year, and he fucking like got 13 tackles a fucking game. The guy balls. And he's a hard hitter, and he's a fucking beast. And then I think he got hurt the last 2 games. I think that's like a fucking 5-game sample that he got of those points. He's good, and they were definitely leaning that he was going to play with Vince Williams, and Vince Williams retired early. But like the writing was on the wall, anyways. I couldn't believe he got him for $18. So, anyways, I think between that, Logan Wilson, who's going to start this year, he's got Tremaine Edwards, who's a really good middle linebacker, 3-down guy, and Jamin Davis. That's like 4 linebackers he doesn't have to fucking worry about for 4 years. Like that's all right. I
mean, everybody has a different take, and right, that's why we all evaluate players differently and we see things differently. Well, it's a good discussion. I don't want to hijack George's analysis, but I was just surprised by the depth comment. That's all I was trying to say.
Well, listen, if I'm not that high on Spillane, I mean, he was a fill-in player last year. I mean, they got some young guys coming in, and I think I don't know if he's a 3-down linebacker all the way through. That's certainly a great deal. I mean, if he's rotating in and out, and I don't know. I view that as, that's just my own, again, my take. Kamal Martin is, doesn't really have much of a role. Logan Wilson is young, and again, they have other young starting linebackers over there. They've got what's that, Davis Akers or whatever the dude's name is.
Yeah.
So he's still competing for a job. That's certainly not locked in. So I mean, I would say if you want to throw Spillane as there as a 3, that's fine. But again, just you got to fill out you got to have a flex defensive player. I don't see one at the defensive end position. I don't see one at safety. And, so, I mean, I think that's light. I think he's 1 or 2 injuries away from having problems. And, again, he has his picks, which he could, I guess, flip and try to fill those in. So he has a little bit but I don't know. That's just how I see it today. I don't like the depth and that he has at the defensive end position. At the linebacker position, and that's not to say he's not going to can't win any given game that he's starting. If everybody's healthy, he's got the horses, particularly at the wide receiver position. If I were him, I would be hitting me up for Caleb Huntley behind Mike Davis. And, to kind of, just in case, Davis can't hack it.
He wanted Tavian Hawkins, but he got taken before Jamin Davis.
Oh, we're going to get to that. We'll get to that. Well,
let's
That's
save
my
your
thing. So
trade negotiations for your own personal time, Georgia. Like we're gonna we're gonna wrap this one up because we don't have all day to do just this one manager, hot mess. So
Okay.
let's skip ahead to your next one. Is it KC Mean Machine? Overall, I think he has a pretty
No,
good squad, wouldn't you say? Though, I mean, he's top half
uh,
the division.
yeah, you know what? Actually, I had Thor, but I can jump down here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whichever one you prefer, it doesn't
Let's
matter.
do Thor. Let's do Thor because he's next
Okay.
on my sheet here. Okay, so Thor in 2020, 5-7 last in his division. For 2022 picks, he has 1/5 rounder.
How the hell do you spell Thor or Ragnarok? Is it Ragnarok?
I don't know.
Ragnarok.
Ask a comic book nerd.
Ragnarok.
Anyway, so I had to start out just by saying how immensely poor his form was this year with the draft etiquette. He had that 1.15 pick, and if you guys recall, he took 4 fucking hours to make it, and then made the worst pick in the draft after all that stuff. So, so if the punches aren't being pulled here, maybe have a little chip on my shoulder towards Thor.
Not all superheroes wear capes, but Thor does.
I will tell you. Let me go to his full roster, but
I'm trying to get there. Someone spell it correctly for me so I don't look like an idiot here.
RAGNAROK.
There we go. We got him.
all right.
Sorry about that.
Oh, NO.
So- And I'm just gonna. And again, you guys have been very nice doing these.
Is his
things.
name actually Thor?
That's the whole thing.
Oh wow.
I guess.
Okay. That's awesome stuff.
But anyways, I think his team is pretty much a mess. Sorry, and his top RBs. He's got Melvin Gordon on a $300 contract for 2 years, who's about to lose his job. He's got Breida, who's going to be lucky if he gets a job up in Buffalo. You got Hawkins, who was his big pick at 115, who's again going to be lucky to have a job, or he may end up on the practice squad. And his wide receivers, he's again a guy that has some. I mean, you've got Tyreek Hill, but at 123 left, final year of his contract, that's now he's headed to tagging status. He's already got Tyler Lockett, 3 years committed on a tag, and behind them, he's got Ayuk, which is obviously his best asset, but again, not much behind it. His second best asset, in my opinion, is Dallas Goedert. But you get past him down into the IDPs, and I just don't like really any of them, with the exception of Josh Allen.
Let's take a pause real quick. So you think Melvin Gordon loses his job this year or next year?
I think he's going to lose at some point this year.
Okay. And then you think that Matt Breida doesn't have any value in Buffalo? Because I've just caught clip notes of them saying that he's actually performing quite well in Buffalo and could have a role.
Well, but I mean, if you want to call he had 51 points last year in our league. If we want to call that,
performs that.
I mean, if he's say he, does 50% better in 75 points,
right?
It's still not a guy you want to start as your starting second running back.
Correct. Got
it. And behind him, he might. I mean, the other guys might all be goose eggs, week in and week out. If Hawkins, ends up in the practice squad.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, I don't like that at all, and in particularly the contract. And Melvin Gordon's going to be 360 next year, and and where's he going to be? I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
he could be
that's expensive.
He could be sitting around, and again, the Tyler Lockett contract, and so if I took over as like the Mortimer Duke said, I would be selling because this team is on the brink of collapse. He has contracts of a team looking to make a run, but the assets of team about to go off of a cliff. Selling, I mean, underselling, but I would, my philosophy is if you're in this type of situation, sell your most valuable assets at their peak, which I think are Ayuk and Goddard. They'd be gone for me. And Hill, I would move. Lockett and Gordon, I would probably wait to the trade deadline when there's injuries and cap frees up, but they'd be gone. And, I would be looking at this season as probably kind of a lost season and try to build picks backs up and, maybe use 2022 as a rebuild and really try to get after it 2023.
Yeah, he still has time to do that though. when you start losing games and then people start getting close or people get slow
Injuries.
starts and they think they're in there. And all of a sudden you can get a lot more picks because people forget how much they love picks in the middle of the season versus right around the draft and all that. So, I mean, I agree with you. If he stands pat the whole way through, this is going to be a tough roster to deal with in next year. I mean, that Melvin Gordon contract is going to, I mean, presumably, I mean, I agree that I think they cut him for next year. So, you know, you got to get him to catch on somewhere else. And
Well, that's going to be a
Should be
con. I'd probably write that contract off next year personally, and just take the cap you can get back. And
yeah, I'd do it before the end of this year, actually. Yeah.
yeah,
Take
but
the less
yeah.
hit.
So you know, but what I will call the mismanagement portion, and I will say that all three of these guys are all fairly new owners. So, you know, I get that, you know, not everybody took over a team like Bad Boys took, you know, like these guys may not have had the best starting pieces to start with. But I know that I personally was hitting him up for Tyreek Hill last year when he was a $14 player, and I'm sure other guys were too. And that's what that's the time to sell that guy or a guy like him before because I believe that the value in whatever his value would have been, I believe it's a full first round value less now that he's in his last year at 123. So
what would your offer out of curiosity, what was your offer last year for Tyreek Hill when I was a $14 player?
Oh God, you know, I'd have to go back and look, and that'd be boring.
Is it
but
several
I mean,
firsts?
certainly several first round values. I mean, maybe it was a first, second, and a young player. I mean, who knows? You know?
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, but it would. But again, it would be far less than I would give now.
I do want to point out one thing about this roster. I think is very important. He does have Des Bryant on there. And as much as we might think that Des Bryant could make some crazy comeback, Des Bryant is now king of the NFT world, making millions of dollars, more than he would ever in football. So that ship sailed. That motherfucker ain't coming back. I was on a Twitter space yapping with him. I almost got in a fantasy league with him because we owned the same NFT. It was fucking fantastic. R.I.P. Des Bryant. He's leading the NFT world. Let's fucking go.
Well, I guess you can go ahead and cut him, Thor.
He seems like
a
real smart guy, that Des Bryant too. I bet he's
yeah, they're actually doing a project, not to like dive into anything, but he's building a project that's going to raise millions and millions of dollars for like struggling athletes, college and high school athletes trying to like, you know, make it. So it's actually really a pretty admirable cause that he's doing.
That's awesome. It's hard to believe that there are any college athletes that are struggling these days with the new rules in place, but that's a whole another podcast.
Yeah, I think it's high school actually mostly.
Awesome. Are we done with beating up Thor and taking all his thunder away?
Yeah, there. I see what you did there, Corey. You know, I know you don't even watch superhero movies.
No,
now
I
it's
just
pretty
pulled
clever.
that one out of my ass.
Pretty clever.
Again, I've seen you guys talk about some really shitty rosters and dance around it. And, you know,
it's a shit roster. Hey, man, I'm with you, man. It's a very, very undefined. I'm with you, man. You don't know what he's doing. I mean, not what he's doing. You just like, you don't see where the direction of this is.
Listen, I don't mind shit rosters. What I'm kind of starting to notice is that there's just shit rosters doing absolutely nothing about it. You know, it's like, if you're in a situation where you're kind of meh or less than meh, like in my opinion, it's time to be active and start, you know, throwing the die a little bit. Like, I mean, when I took over my team, I cut everything, and I didn't care if I was winning every deal or not. I was going to try to get as many assets and most dollars and clean it up as quickly as possible. I'm not saying it's the right strategy. I'm just saying I've seen a lot of teams in our divisions and in our league that are I mean, one or two, you know, transactions outside of the auction and the draft. Like, how is that possible then when you look at their team and you see a bunch of just, you know? And I'm not saying that this team or Thor's team falls into that. I'm confused by the lack of activity by people that seem to be complacent in a league of this much depth and when you're in an expert level league. That's all.
Well, I'll just add to that. To finish, you know, just on my last comment on Thor will be, you know, not that he got here though, because he held on to the Lockett Hill. He could have probably cashed in for 3 or 4 first round value picks by moving them last year and anticipating this. And what I would my rule of thumb, everybody's can do whatever they want. You know, I try to get out of guys well before you're in that kind of last year decision and then you're giving them away for, you know, for bargain
like Tony
prices.
Jefferson.
like Tony Jefferson. Again, we'll get to my team when we get to it. But and he has no picks. So
Yeah, well, he's
got work to
that's
do.
the other problem.
He's got
Yeah,
no
he got
picks
no
next
picks.
year.
He's got 1 5th rounder. So
Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's
okay,
go on to the next
on to-
one, Georgia.
on to KC. He was 6-6 last year, missed the playoffs. He has his first and second round pick along with his 6, which I would advise please hold them. As I say that, let me just jump over to his full roster. Oh, here we go. I'm there already.
I got it up on the screen there, Georgia.
Yeah, but my eyes aren't what they used to be. I need them blown up like up to size 1,000 font. But anyways, so he's got he's carried it. He's got a big Cooks contract. At running back, Kenyon Drake, I think, is a decently valuable player. I don't think he's going to have over 200 points this year, but I kind of look at like what James White would always be, right about 150, 160. I think that Drake is fine, to think he's going to be out there. Besides that, I mean, Jerick McKinnon, who knows what he's going to be doing in KC, and there's just nobody else there, Buddy Howell or these other guys. At wide receiver, touchdown, he's got Cooks at a big contract. Will Fuller, who on his last year at $100, and he's already, he's got his own problems and can't stay healthy. He's got KJ Osborne, which maybe Ben could overpay for.
Hey man, I tried to overpay for him. I tried to get him off him, but he's a tough guy to trade with because he doesn't like to give much information back, or he wouldn't give me counters. I'm just like, hey man, like, what do you want? And we had an aligned interest because I have Darrell Williams, and him and Jerick McKinnon are the 2 guys that are basically going to be the 2 backups to CEH. And since he doesn't have a lot of depth, I figured it'd make a lot of sense for him to get that. And I think I was going to give him a pick also for KJ, and he wouldn't do it. So either he's a Vikings fan and he's been reading the tape, or he just, likes to sit on his assets. And
well, my favorite guys to trade with in this league are guys who I know are fans of a certain team. So if KJ Osborne is on my team, I know you're a fan of their team, and you're hitting me up for what's it going to take. He will be on your roster, and I will make you overpay for him. Like that's.
I think you misjudge our intelligence a little bit, though. Like, I'm not overpaying for anybody just because they're a Bears player, first and foremost. But I mean, I understand your
speak
strategy.
for yourself, Corey. I'm all in, baby. Let's go.
Ben's not giving me a second round pick for KJ Osborne. I can tell you that right now.
Corey. In fairness, you gave me a second and a third for Daz Newsome.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't pay you. I activated. That's a different thing.
Oh, right.
I had offered you that same value a long time ago.
Call
and you didn't. You said it was worth more.
You didn't. You did never offered me a second or a third. There was always other stuff going on.
I only did, and honestly, I only did it because Anthony Miller was traded, and then I snap called it because I figured that was the time to do it. That's the only reason, and it had nothing. I mean, I've watched everybody's rosters and who I can activate. It's my favorite fucking thing to do because James Robinson was activated for my first league and the contract killers by my best friend in fantasy. So now it's just a personal mission of mine to activate as many players and fuck as many people as possible because I got burnt by it. That's all.
Well, you gave me some ammunition to do my own face fucking later on. So we'll see, we'll see if I do a little shopping of my own at some point.
Nice. I like it.
But anyways, so back to the thing here. On the defensive side, he's got a clear big ticket piece in Devin White, who's on a 5-year contract at $63. Randy Gregory on a franchise tag. I don't love that. And there's not much else at defensive end. Malik Reed is a decent, bargaining chip. I just, and this is this is going to drive Ben nuts. Take a look at that DTS. What do you think?
Man, you know what? I'm getting a lot of shit, and on the message boards, everybody trying to tell me that DTSs don't matter. A lot of excuses out there about the DTS. I'll tell you what. See a lot of rookies that could be on that DTS could have filled your roster with something sexy, especially when fucking players were going for $1 to $5. They were going to be next man up. The hell y'all doing? Put the fucking taxi squad up, son.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that. These arguments these guys are making are just, ludicrous. And it's like every argument that they make, I want to scream, yeah, but you can cut them for free at any time. Like they're just they're not there forever. You could free that space up, that cap up at any moment.
Georgia, I want to propose a rule to the league, and you can help me with this, okay?
Go ahead.
Why don't we just say there's 360 taxi squad spots? And if these motherfuckers don't want to use their taxi squad, excuse me, I don't really mean motherfuckers. I'm just a little animated. You guys are great. I love you. But if they don't want to use their taxi squad spots, I'll take 20. I'll take 30.
It's not
40.
I'll nip that in the butt right now. I'll nip that in the butt right now. That's not a reality based rule change. So like what I'm saying is it doesn't
Georgia
align with
would
what the
love that rule.
NFL has. You can't have 650 people on your taxi squad in the NFL. So why should we have it in our league? I just don't agree.
Well,
with it.
okay, I don't want to go
I'm
down
going
the
to tell you
rabbit
this:
hole.
they're not having enough players on their roster.
I don't want to get down this rabbit hole, but we had 15 taxi squad guys, and that was fucked up to change. And a bunch of guys just went and blindly supported it, and it's fucking terrible. We should still have a 15-man taxi squad, and
it makes the people who want to use it, they use it, and the people that don't. It's like
right. It's not a gun to your head. So anyways, back to where he's at. I think that he's at a situation to where it's good he has his first and second round pick. And I'm not saying that because I don't think he's going to win a lot of games, but just they're going to be good bargaining chips or a good player. And, I think it's time to sell. And I would be on that fucking message board on a daily basis. Devin White for sale, auction for Devin White to the highest bidder, because I don't think that his value will ever be higher than it is right now. And he's not going to do you any good. It's not going to do you any good to keep him around there and just let him depreciate for another season or two. He would be, and I'm sure you love him. And Casey's a really good dude, and he inherited a team. And he's still figuring it out. And we've had some, really pleasant chats and so on. And so I really like to see him do well. And I know it's hard to look at your roster and see your favorite guy in your roster and to trade him. But to be successful in this league, I believe that's exactly, you almost have to lean into doing that. Particularly when you can look at the roster and you can see one that's, last year it went 500. I think he would be really fortunate to go 500 this year. I think he's probably more, maybe a 3 or 4 win team.
Yeah, I think he's a little top heavy without it being very top, right? It's I don't see a lot of depth, and I think he needs to get lucky with injuries and stuff like that just to compete. So it's tough. It's a tough roster.
Great job, G-Dub. We appreciate it. I will add just because it came up in your kind of analysis of KC and overall opinion here. I think you should respond to trade offers, especially if you're a person that is asking to move someone, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're on the message board saying, I'm trying to move this, or I have cap problems, or this or that and the other, if someone takes the time and it's not an absurd Wayne offer, like respond to it and counter or give them some sort of feedback. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous in a league of grown-up gentlemen that you just snap deny it within 24 minutes or whatever it is, or even within a day, and you don't provide any sort of justification. Because I wasted my team trying to find a solution for you, and then I don't get any feedback. I think that's pathetic, to be perfectly honest with you. Unless
that's the play, Corey. Get y'all hot up so you make bad decisions.
No, I just think it's okay. That's a mental note for me later, and I'll do the same thing to that person. It's just to me, I think it's just stupid. Like, why even play the game, or why even put it out there? That's just.
Hey, man, I haven't responded sometimes when I got a snap. It's just busy. I'd rather give a response sometimes quicker, because like I've also done that, George. Like I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. Like, I'll wait, and he's just like, look at your trade offers, you jackass. And I'm like, right. I'm busy.
Well, George is different because he's not mentally competent all the time. So I think he just goes off and falls into a black hole where it's normal for you not to hear from Georgia for 2 days until the caps come out in the chat room, right? But like, I'll even respond to someone like Bad Boys and Warren and be like, listen, man, I don't think we'll ever be trade partners. I don't think we'll ever be able to make a deal, and I would appreciate if you don't send me any more offers. Just because it's like at least you're
I'd like to keep the doors open.
Well, I don't know. Some doors deserve to be cut.
You're prima donna, man.
No, I don't have time for nonsense. We're busy folks. Don't waste my time. I won't waste yours. That's all there is to it. Anyway, moving on, Ben. You are next in line with your reviews. Who do you want to start with?
I don't know. You tell me, man.
All right.
Save Roman for
According to
last.
my list, you were going to go with Wildcat, Sin City, and then we're leaving Argo for last. Don't lose all your moxie, blowing your wad on the first two.
Yeah, actually, you're probably going to make me take it easy on the other two teams so I can just wreck Roman in every way. So he's going to be so mad that he didn't come here to defend his team.
He's probably listening in some weird way.
Oh, creepy. Maybe. So yeah, he first of all, foremost, he did want me to relay a lot of information for him, which I'm probably not going to do. He wanted to pre-defend his team before I even got to
No. He can come on another time, or he can get in the chat room. Like, if you can't make yourself available, you don't get special privileges. We haven't extended that to any other GM. So here we are with Wildcats, Ben. They're up and ready for you.
Oh man, you gave me the good one. All right. Well, okay, Bart, I'm sure you're a nice guy and I'm sure you mean that well in this league, but you're clearly not trying to fucking compete. You know how I know? Because you can't make a starting fucking lineup, bro. What the fuck are we doing here? Okay. This is what we don't like. Georgia doesn't like this stuff. You can get the wrath of Georgia. You're too obviously tanking, my brother. You're too obviously tanking. It's okay. You want to rebuild? I'm all right with that. How the fuck are you sitting there with two running backs and one is on the fucking free agency? Are you fucking kidding me right now? What the fuck are we doing there? I just sent this guy a trade offer for two running backs, and I guarantee you he's going to fucking deny it. I hope he sees his podcast and realizes that he can't make a starting lineup. Jesus. Le'Veon Bell, please come out of retirement so this guy can start a fucking team. Christ almighty. With Jordan Howard, who might even get cut. Are we fucking joking right now? Anyways, so he's clearly rebuilding. Also, if you go down the list, he's been drafting lots of guys the last couple of years and sucking at it, like really bad. And, I'm sorry, he's got Harry McKeel and Andy Isabella both extended. Like, whoa, like, holy hell. Like some of this, Anthony Miller extended. David Sills, I don't know who the fuck that is. He's extended.
I don't think Anthony Miller was a bad extension last year. Probably. I don't know. Maybe not 5 years, but that's probably.
You see that these are all max extensions without, and I get it. You draft a guy, you want to see what happens. We're going to go on the list. He's done it everywhere. So it's like it's not like he has a lot of cap expires. He's got 5-year contracts all over the place because he did put draft capital in it. That's okay. I think 5's a little aggressive for somebody like Andy Isabella who hasn't seen the fucking field, but like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to give him away for free in contract and everyone's telling me to go fuck myself. So what do I know? Anyways, this team's a disaster. This is the last place team. I don't even want to hear anything from anyone because quite frankly, he's setting it up to be that way. And that's fine. If you don't want to compete, it is what it is. He gave a grade school try to fill a roster, if we can say that. But let's see. How many points is he getting at his wide receivers, Corey, on a good day?
Well, I like Campbell. Kelvin Harmon's not horrible. Harry needs a new team, but probably is a bust. Miller could probably make a little bit of noise, and Greg Ward's probably number 3 or 4 in the depth chart in Philadelphia. That's how I look at it.
Roman would disagree, but okay.
Greg Ward always surprises every year. I've been watching him for 3 years now, and he somehow always has 50 receptions and 600 yards. But
what figure out a bet? We'll make it. That's ridiculous. Okay, so then tight ends. He's got some young guys. The thing is, like, all his guys are young, cool if they work out. Like, but they haven't shown good signs. Like, I mean, Thaddeus Moss might work out. He looks good in camp. I like John Bates. Sure. That's a ways away. And he's got Eric Ebron for this year at $108. What are you gonna do? Hope you don't fucking franchise him. Holy shit. Like, what are you doing with this roster? How can you even trade these contracts? Georgia, do you want any of these contracts?
If you would like for me to jump in, I would like to point out that, Brad, I think you're doing a wonderful job. And I see that you have
his name's Bart, for Christ's sakes, George. If you're going to call a guy by his first name and try to kiss his ass, at least call him by the right name.
Hey, listen to me. This connection is not that great. I know who I'm talking to, Bart. He has 3 first-rounders next year, 3 second-rounders next year,
okay.
2 third-rounders next year, and 5 or 6 other late picks. Now, I will tell you, Bart, that I think that I don't disagree that this is a rebuilding team. I don't think some of these assets are all that bad, and I think you should maybe pick up the old George Warhorse bat phone And
Fucking knew
I
this was
have
coming, Georgia.
I have some picks.
Hijacking the
that
pod to get some
you
trades.
you have some players. I have some picks. We should be talking, brother.
You're going to get muted here, Georgia, in less than 5 minutes if you continue to use this platform for your trade negotiations. Okay.
Hey,
we have
wait.
several ways to communicate with other GMs, and the podcast is
Wait,
not
hold
one.
on. We haven't even got to the defense. Let's get to the defense. This defense is fun. So we're sitting there. Okay, you got Derek Brown. Derek Brown's great. That's awesome. He's going to be good. Why the fuck are we sitting here with $120 to DNs and 5
There you go.
DNs? What are you going to do with them? Okay, well, you can start 2. Well, good luck with that. That's pretty inconsistent. So, and then we got DNs. Okay, 2 maybe. Montez Sweat's going to be good. That's fine. Morgan Fox should be startable. Everything else is pretty dicey. And then, holy hell, what are we doing? I want to question what's going on here, but I can see what's going on here. Look on the right. It's all his draft picks, and he won't trade his draft capital, it looks like, or he's just going to take all. I don't know where all these came from, or if he
Wait,
drafted
Ben,
them
excuse
himself.
me. Stop right. You need to stop right there because Hot Mess had the exact same type of linebacker crew. And you thought it was deep as hell. And this is the exact same
I don't think
look.
his linebacker crew's that bad either. I mean, he has
Blake
Martinez.
Martinez,
Uche has a shot. Bradley Chubb is, I mean,
come on, that's the same thing. He's
not
got
awful.
a couple
Okay.
starters. and
not
some
Okay,
young
he
guys.
pars one team in this league at one position. Let's give him a round of applause. All right.
Well, I agree with
Fucking
you there.
shit.
I agree
All
with
right.
that. But that's
Poor
I
Quarterbacks are
like his safeties as well. I will
Oh
say
man,
that.
I like his safeties. Is how you win championships in this fucking.
I'm
league.
just saying. It's like, I mean, let's not. I mean, if we're gonna analyze a team,
Bart,
let's
Bart,
analyze the team and not
I'm
just
sorry.
lump it
I'm
into a
sorry.
big
You're the.
pile of shit. You know what I mean?
I'm analyzing the team. What do you want to know? Who
Okay.
do I want on this roster? Not very many players.
All
I'll
right.
go through all of them if you want.
No,
But, like, normally I would
see
like
some
a lot
moves
of
I would make
people.
with him. Again, I'd like to see people be more active. That's all. I mean,
Yeah, all I hear
can't be
from
in
all
love
the
with the
people in
roster.
chat is that Ben's being too nice on fucking teams. You know what? Nice Ben's fucking over. I'm gonna come and bring the fucking boomstick, and you're all gonna fucking pay for it by holding shitty teams like this.
Hey, Bart,
My
call
team
me,
sucks
brother.
too.
Call me, Bart. Call me.
I love you, Bart. I'm sorry. You got I had my defense day where I had to be. However, he's got some taxi squad guys there, and he's clearly got some guys who will help him that he's leaving there. It's again, I think that's smart if you're reviewing and you just want to, wait it out.
I really like Amash Nazruddin. I've been trying to get him in every league. I like Talona Hufanga. I like Nasser. I mean, like they're just guys. I like Uche. I like his chances to win. What's the guy that's ahead of him? Bentley's
Fucking
gone. I
reaching,
like
my
Uche
man.
to step. Yeah, I mean, like
We're reaching,
I like
man.
his wide receivers. I'd make a play for Harmon for $10 just in case. I like Campbell if he was going to sell him, just see how he popped this year and maybe get some value.
Hey,
Like, there's-
Bart, Corey wants to trade rosters, man. Snap call that motherfucker.
No, I'm
Hey,
just
Co-
saying
hey,
it's not. There's things
Corey.
he can do. I mean, it's not a.
Look, there's
Stop trying to make
there's-
trades, Corey. Come on, this isn't a podcast
Yeah,
to make trades.
exactly.
I'm just saying. I
Corey-
was
Corey's
talking
gonna
about
mute
his
people so he
assets
can fucking
as
talk
as
about it.
more positive than
They're
what.
all assets because they're young. Okay, I'm
Right.
not denying that, but they're not good assets because they haven't done anything. Most of them, and
This
more
is scary, though.
importantly,
I
they've.
mean, this
Hey-
is scary.
hey, Corey,
I
I'd like-
He
mean,
I-
has
this
lots
is
of
scary.
picks. In 3 years, maybe he's awesome. I don't know,
See,
but I don't
it's-
see the path to relevance for at least
Right.
2 years.
I hear
Okay.
you. I hear
Okay,
you.
question for Corey on this one, real quick. What's your take on Anthony Miller as a Bears fan who's watched him much more than I have? I really liked him coming in.
I did
What-
too. I'll be honest. Ben and I had kind of a little bit of an offline. I think he's not a great person to be around, is what I'm gathering, and that he's just kind of a hothead locker room guy that's not
favorite
that thinks
people
he's
don't.
better than he is. And he just they have an alpha dog in Allen Robinson, and he had some drop season. He's been hurt, but I think he had talent, and they were very high on him in the first when he was a rookie, and even going into his second year. So I think the way that Mooney's has excelled in the way they're talking about him, he was just very, very much replaceable, and they didn't need the drama in the locker room. I
Do you
think a fresh
how-
start for him will be okay.
How do you think he'll do well in Houston?
I mean, who do they have? Who do they have there
Yeah.
besides Cooks? I mean, so you
Not
got
much.
to. He's going to get clock, and then if they can develop a rapport with their younger quarterback or whoever it is, like then he has a chance. I would say, $62 for 4 more years is risky, but like he's probably, if you went into the auction tomorrow, I'd pay that amount. So easily. So
Listen, we're witnessing a 4-year rebuild. I'm not a fan of having to take 4 years to rebuild a team to be competitive. I don't think any of us are. I think I'd rather be more aggressive in trying to figure it out. He's just going to take the slow boat to China. That's fine.
I don't like extending some of these players for 5 years. I've learned that you have to extend 2 to 3 years, and just if you get burned a little because someone hits, well,
The
so be it.
defense I would do
It is
is
what it
I
is.
would say is, in past it's like been really expensive, especially at the wide receiver, to get anyone worth a shit. So like the risk is fine, but like he's got a clogged roster with contracts that are really hard to move, and he's got lots of picks next year. Cool. Who's he cutting? Extended everyone.
Yeah,
How is
he's
he
got
keeping all
about.
those guys?
I'm just quickly maybe a
So,
couple hundred.
If he
He's
gets
got
active
about
trading those guys
$350
around-
coming off the roster.
Yeah, but
Something
he
like
has
that.
like 220 in cap this year too. So he
Well-
didn't nearly spend as much as he could have, which is another reason like he's clearly tanking, because if you have $220 and you and no running backs. I mean,
Yeah, that's
you're
an
not-
issue.
you're
I
not
don't know how
competing
you
this
solve
year.
for that. I mean,
And that's why I laid in a lot, because I don't like when I see obviously that people aren't competing this year, and that's his right. I wish he would be able to start his own lineup, but the commission is probably going to have to manually do it at this point. It's depressing.
Bart, call me. I think you're doing a great job. Give me a call, brother. Pick up
moving
Bart,
on
I
to
sent
Sin
you a-
City, Ben.
I sent you a trade. I sent you a trade offer, man. Like we can get back on the good horse. Like take it up, baby.
Let's let
Sure,
Sin
sure, if
City
he
have
watches-
it. Georgia,
Sure, if he
try
watches
to
this.
keep your mouth quiet when Ben's talking about Sin City, because we know you have opinions about your cousin's team here.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So this is a touchy subject here.
No, they're relatives,
Okay. Well, this podcast has noted that they believe that Raheem Mostert, is the worst contract of the draft and this and that. I don't think it's that bad. I think it'd be all right. But between him and old Kyle there, I mean, they'll probably be able to get points. I like ETN a lot. And then Marlon Mack is going to have a role. Let's just call it okay. I mean, he's going to be able to not get ducats. That Colts quarterback is probably potentially much better now that Carson Wentz is out. I said that for Ramon. Okay. Just so you know. But yeah, at first I was like, oh no, Wentz is out. I'm like, I don't know, is that a bad thing? Let's see what happens. They got two young guys, they're slinging it out. It sounds like they don't look terrible, either of them. So it's actually a really interesting battle there. And then wide receivers, man, this is a real envy situation with wide receivers to be able to be this young, but kind of with that much upside. You sitting there with Jamar Chase. I know there's things coming out that he doesn't look that great. I don't fucking care. I still think he's going to be amazing. Brandon Edwards is going to be good. I still believe in his talent. And then Jerry Jeudy, I like him a lot more than most people this year. And then Jalen Waddle. I mean, those are four guys that he might have for the next 5 to 8 years on his team and never have to think about wide receiver. That's pretty special. So I'll tell you what, man, I don't want this team on against me next year. I'll tell you that much. He's going to have some cap to play around with. He's going to be able to have a lot of rosters and some experience there. He's going to be a tough team, I think, the next few years. He's got the Kyle Pitts right there. No big deal. It's going to be a start for him. And again, like Kyle Pitts might need a year. Waddle might need a year. Some of these guys, they're going to get there quick. I was just like surprised at how good and young his team is. It's potentially one of those teams you look at in 3 or 4 years and you're like, how the fuck did he get all these guys? I've seen those in spots, especially in these other leagues. And then on defense, again, a lot of DTs. I'm not a huge fan. I got too many DTs too, so I shouldn't talk. But his DN's a pretty weak spot for him. I see sometimes people just got to pick their poison and just be like, I'm not going to be good at that. I don't know about having 3 DNs on roster. So I'd rather see more there. Linebackers, again, I think, to be fair, we're seeing a lot of the same thing in this division. There's some good guys. There's some guys who need some help. And Jamie Collins, LJ Fort, and Danny Trevathan this year should all be really good performers. And the other guys, we don't know, right? So I won't praise his linebackers because I haven't praised anyone's linebackers so far, so to say, but they'll do the trick. And then yeah, man, safeties are pretty solid, but holy shit, that was a lot of money to get there. To compete this year, 1 year Flyers, I don't hate it. I probably would have liked to see like 96 of those dollars on Chuck Clark go to a DN that he could have relied on, but I don't know. A lot of people got in the frenzy early, and I think this was a clear case where he just went and got 3 safeties, and then they got cheaper later, and that's a tough titty right there, but is what it is. And after all the goddamn good things I said about this man's roster, he's sitting there with a goddamn empty taxi squad, and I don't know. I can't even do rants anymore. Sin City, I love your fucking.
He doesn't have any money. 31 cents.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens when you spend
to not have $10
on
to get $1 things. Yeah, that's not the excuse. The excuse is you mismanaged your money and you didn't fill your fucking taxi squad, which still is inexcusable. Fill your taxi squad. Anyways,
I don't know, yeah.
so I actually like Sin City as one of the better teams in this division. Personally, I think there's some loose ends that are going to make it tough to win week in, week out. I don't think he's the best team in the division. I think he is in the top 4.
What's his draft capital look like for next year, Ben?
I think he doesn't have his first, but he has like a second, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Let me ask you this question. Would you rather have this team or Mighty Orphans if you were a new owner coming into the league?
This team.
Yeah. I mean, it's because of the wide receivers, right? But like he's set up at this point to make a real good push if he's smart.
And he had 102, 106, 107, 108. And he used them, in my opinion, about as brilliantly as he could.
Well, people fell to him as well, right?
No, I mean, that's what happens is the ETN went number 2, and then getting Jamar Chase at 6 doesn't happen in any other league except this one because you need running backs. So he got a running back, which he needed desperately to have a base with, and then went and got 2 really good wide receivers.
Who did he sell off to get all those picks?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know.
Do you know, Georgia?
Enough to get first.
I don't. I think he may have had one of Wayne's picks last year somehow, when Wayne was giving them away. I'm just looking at this. He has a second, a third,
a Red Hot Chili
fifth.
Peppers song.
Yeah. He's got a second, a third, a fifth, and a sixth are his draft capital, which when you have 4 out of your 6 original picks, I think that's, I think that's pretty good. And I agree. To me, I think he's the second best team in the division. And I was, a little bit hard last time. And I think that the safety thing, he would probably even admit, that he would have been better off spreading that out.
Yeah, I don't think we're in denial when we get caught early in these auctions, and that's a tough one on the one position. He spent essentially those 3, and if you look at it, he probably could have got just next tier all 3 of those and saved probably $100, and then
came up with a couple linebackers.
Sure. I've been there.
And I agree with you about. And I think that $250 for the best running back at the auction, the next best guy was maybe Jamal Williams or somebody. Arguably. But I think that I'm fine. I think that that's a perfect.
How many practices has Swift missed already this
he was the only guy with a confirmed starting job at the time. So I thought it was totally fair. We've seen these auctions and Melvin Gordon.
Chalk.
Listen,
Melvin Gordon went for $400.
When it's
$400 2 years ago.
When your only 2 options are Mostert and Jamal Williams, and then it really gets bad, paying $250 for either of those. I mean,
he did what he had to do.
So I think, ETN is going to be obviously valuable. It'll be really interesting to see what Marlon Mack will do this year. The one thing I will just say is, when you're talking about, my God, he's going to have all these guys for the next 5 or 8 years, and that's just going to be amazing. He's going to, he's put on cruise control. You can't do that in this league because all of those guys within a couple of years, with the bumps every 20%, and then the extension 20%, and then you're in holdouts, you're going to end up at a place, going back to the Thor situation where, I got a bunch of great, I got some good receivers that would have been really valuable to sell 2 years ago, and now I'm holding them too long. So I would just,
He's got
suggest-
He's got 4 stud rookies and Pitts on rookie contracts.
Yeah, I
I
was
would
just
just
going to
He's
say
got
the
3.
difference
He's got
is
3 years minimum plus
he
plus
got
an
the
extension.
best wide receiver, the second best wide
Yeah.
receiver, and a generational tight end, and the number number 2 running back, which arguably could have been number 1. So like I see those as until they fail, they're
Right.
fish in the barrel, right?
But
And
the salary cap plays. You can't just pencil in 7 years.
You can pencil in 5 pretty
Because
easily
it's-
though.
I
Well, not with
exaggerated, but
holdouts.
I don't want to fuck with this team
Not
for
with
at least
holdouts.
3.
And by the way, you're not. I'm a bigger Jerry Jeudy fan than you. I think he did an amazing
so?
job getting these, putting this thing together. And I think that he's going to be, if not this year, certainly formidable next year. And
I think
don't
he's a problem in the Super Pot year next year.
And
think
I
his
don't.
team's looking for it.
Yeah, and I think he'll learn the safety lesson, and and he still has picks. I mean, you can get a decent
Crazy.
linebacker in the second round next year. So I mean, he's going to be very tough to deal with. And
I never have picks. I'm doing it all wrong. I'm up here judging people. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I never have picks.
yeah, it's a good squad. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he did a
All
great
right,
job
Ben.
with the draft.
Let's skip ahead to Mr. Argo, one of the focal points of today's discussion. Obviously, we're going to give a little bit of extra clock to this because we want to make sure we rip that Frenchie butthole apart.
Hey,
Do we have
wait,
extra clock? I
we
feel like
we skipped Be Cool?
No, Be Cool is one of mine.
Oh, I thought you were doing Argo last.
Nope,
No,
we're going to do
Argo's the last
Argo.
of mine.
Ben's
Okay.
last Argo, and then your
Ben's
last of
last.
the whole.
Okay, got you. Sorry. Carry on.
Okay, so 49ers quarterback, I like that he was aggressive early to go get that until everyone went for $1. It is what it is. If Trey Lance starts, that's got some real upside. And I think Roman's all in for this year, so he needs Jimmy Garoppolo to grab some pine real quick. Now, Roman wanted to tout that he has the best running back stable in the league. And I told him he definitely is elite at the position in one manner. He has the most injury prone running back stable in the league. When you are 3 running backs top heavy with nothing else, and none of them have proven to be healthy except for Alvin Kamara, maybe a couple seasons, it's going to be a dicey affair. I think he's going to have he's going to have to mix and match here and there. Luckily, his roster's got a lot of good shit, but I would love those running backs. I would love to ride or die with those running backs, but they better be healthy. You got to look at the numbers next to them. I mean, those are just because injury issues and missing games and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of Dobbins. I'm a big fan of Kamara, and I think Sanders has upside. So we'll see how it comes playoff time and where that looks. His wide receivers, man, it's like Poop Schuster, as he would call it, Juju Poop Schuster, and Keenan Allen. Yeah, he would argue that Travis Fulgham would probably lead all wide receivers in the NFL in receiving. He'll probably be better than Corey's boy, but that's remained to be
I'll
seen.
take that bet.
He'd argue that about
I'm not gonna
Tajay
do-
Sharp
I'm
if
not
he was
gonna do it.
here.
Yeah. So the rest of it's dicey, right? I don't know where he gets even starting. He's got a really top heavy lineup, like really top heavy. And if he stays healthy, he's just going to be a really, really hard team to beat. But if he gets hurt, I mean, it's going to be tough, man. You lose if Keenan Allen goes down and Juju goes down, he's like essentially getting nothing at the position, right? So it's going to be interesting. And like injury luck is so much in this, but when you start to see teams that actually accumulate depth, which you actually saw some, they can end up, doing better than their projections just simply because they had the depth to do it. And we'll see how it goes. Dalton Schultz, he's a believer. I think Corey, you're a believer too, right?
No, I think
Schultz?
I think that's Jarwin's job when he's healthy, but Schultz so
I'm
far
not-
in camp has been the guy. And
Okay. I'm indifferent. I don't really know which way it's going. I haven't paid a lot of attention because I didn't really want to, I don't think that position produces a lot for the Cowboys right now. So, but we'll see if he can maintain there. And then he's got Bosa and Daniil Hunter. It's a fucking problem every week to go against. You're going to want to get them on a bye or hope they're hurt. But those guys are the top of the game. I don't want to play them. But again, who's after that? Not a lot. I can relate a lot with this roster because I have a lot of this stuff too. But again, linebackers, I don't see any that I'd be like super thrilled with. He's got at least a lot of them, but I don't know. What do you think, Georgia? I don't see any of these guys really grabbing 3 down rolls or putting up a lot of points.
It's you know, it's the old stars and scrubs. He's got, and let me just say, you know, in terms of course, he's got 3 great potential running backs. Now, you know, Miles Sanders is not catching passes in camp, and they drafted the Gainwell kid, who's a very good receiver.
According to Roman and Ben, though, that's from a shitty beat writer that keeps reporting this whole thing.
I don't know
and so
beat
it's
writers.
like I don't know. It's hard to.
Don't group me with that.
Hey, listen,
you didn't say that you didn't like the Elliott guy? I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to group you with it. I made that comment. I didn't think Miles Sanders was going to be good this year either. I think he's actually on his way down, and I think that lumping him into the Kamara and J.K. Dobbins category is wrong in my opinion. I think he's at least 2 steps below both of those guys.
I think his ceiling's there, but that's me.
If I may continue. J.K. Dobbins, I think, is, you know, got a lot of potential. They're going to run the ball, but obviously, you know, it's going to be, I think, a little bit hit and miss with him because you got a quarterback that's going to run in a lot of touchdowns himself. You got Gus Edwards. It's going to be the hammer at the goal line a lot of the times. So, I mean, I think that J.K. is going to be, you know, he's certainly good in town. I'd love to have him. You know, but I don't know. I think maybe he might be, you know, the hype maybe a little bit high for what his production will actually be. And Alvin Kamara, I got to tell you, with the New Orleans Saints, with Michael Thomas, you know, floating around, not committing, you know, they've got new quarterbacks coming in. You know, it's going to be a big difference for him going from, you know, what he has had in the past to what's going to be there going forward. And he's got a lot of mileage on the tires as well. So I think that, you know, it could work out fantastic with the 3 of them. But I think that if all it takes for his team to fall apart is one of the 3 of them, you know, has a bad, you know, gets hurt or is in a bad situation or isn't playing third downs, and he doesn't have the cushions in other positions to support any failure by his running backs.
Let me ask you this question, because the running backs are obviously the focal point, or there's maybe basically 7 to 8 players on offense that are the focal points. He's got about 750 points last year between those 3 running backs. Does he see increased production at that position or less or decreased production? So meaning, does he get more than 750 points out of those 3 running backs? My contention is that Dobbins gets more, Kamara gets less, and Sanders gets less. So it comes down to how much more Dobbins gets than Kamara and Sanders loses, basically. But that's just because
that's
I don't know.
That's a great question.
I think that's where it all hinges on, right?
You think they'll basically be about the same as last year, Corey?
No, I think Dobbins will increase. So let's say Dobbins gets to that 250 kind of almost elite kind of level. I think Kamara is going to have a significant decrease. I just don't like the vibe that's going on in New Orleans right now. And I can see, you know, like maybe he gets 6. It could be blown up real quick, or he could have another 350 point year. I don't think he gets close to 400. So, and then I think Sanders takes. I think this is Sanders' poo year, and he's out of Philly, or he's not their guy next year. That's what I'm thinking. But it could go the complete opposite way as well. I don't know, but that's when I look at these unbiasedly. That's what I see with those 3 players.
I would like disagree with that take.
I would like to offer Roman $20. I will take the under
the 750 mark.
Whatever the total is there to the dollar or to the point, I will take that those 3 will combine for less points than they produced for last year.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
20 bucks.
Both of you.
Okay.
Snap call both of you. Over.
I was offering it to Roman, but I'll take your money.
No. Roman snap calls. You know he's taking this bet.
Yeah, he'll take the bet.
I'm accepting this bet for Roman. Do you want 22, Corey?
Yeah, so Georgia and I will put up 40 against you and Roman, basically. So 20 persons each.
Yes.
And let's just we'll calculate whatever it is. It's over this. US.
Yeah. I can figure that out real quick while you guys continue on his team. I think it's important. I mean, it's honestly a really good way of judging his squad, because he is all in on those 3 players plus Keenan plus the 2 ends plus, you know, Juju in a way, right? Like, So if he gets below that 750 mark, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him if it's significantly lower than the 750. But
I think it gets closer to 9.
900,
You know, if he does, he may win the league.
yeah.
Now,
If he
the
gets
only-
300,
that's it.
if he gets
I'll tell you
300
where
from
the-
each of those running backs,
You say 900 combined.
Yeah, I mean, I said he could get there. Yeah.
there's a way there is a way he does, but there's a way he also gets 600. You know, I mean, it's.
I mean, the only real danger that I see outside of, I just called it the most injury prone stable, is there's a real chance, and I know this because I own Kamara and I always have to deal with this, and this is reality, that if it is going really bad,
Exactly.
and when I say really bad, I mean like they have to be like 0-7, 0-8, and it's really falling apart. There's a chance that Kamara gets some mystery fake injury and hits the IR. So
That's all I'm saying. Nobody's judging. Nobody's saying that Kamara isn't an elite talent. I'm saying his situation become dire.
Oh, it's totally
don't-
changed.
I just don't see that happening with their coaching staff and them allowing that to be the case. So I think that's very minuscule, the percentage of that happening.
All right. Well, the total number is 734, so that's the number we're betting on.
Love
Me
it.
and George
Okay.
have the
I
over.
love it. Roman's gonna fucking laugh when he hears this bet.
I think it's great. I think it's a good
Wow.
bet, and I'm happy to do it. So let's just keep moving
Cool.
on then.
Yeah, I mean, can you scroll down a little there, Corey? And we'll get
Sure.
the core of the defense. So we already kind of went over the linebackers. I'm not super thrilled with, right? Like, but he's going to take some shots and hope guys get injured and stuff like that. And then cornerbacks, safeties. I think he's top heavy there as well. We'll see. Again, I think as a whole, he's a scary roster week to week if he's healthy. I don't think anyone's going to want to play this roster when he's healthy, but I think he's gonna have injury. I mean, unless he just runs white hot, he's gonna have injuries at some point. He himself said that he needs a first round bye because he has Sanders and
Week 17.
Fulham on bye,
I'm
which would be the first round of the playoffs. Shit that I haven't paid attention to enough. I'm probably sitting with my entire team there, not even knowing it. So there's that, you know, like he's he's banking on being really good. He can, man. I mean, I'm sure Georgia doesn't want to play this team healthy, but I think, you know, Georgia probably also doesn't have faith that it's going to be healthy all year.
Georgia says, bring the shit on.
Yeah.
That's what Georgia says.
All right.
Georgia fears no team.
Just to clarify, right now on the Eagles depth chart, they have Devontae Smith, who's hurt, Jalen Reagor, and Greg Ward as the starting 3 top receivers, and then Travis Fulgham, Hightower, and Quez Watkins behind them. I just
One of
pulled that up.
5 depth charts you pulled up. Great.
I'm just saying. I've heard more about Quez Watkins than I have heard about Travis Fulgham. So I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not taking his side. I'm just saying your love for the other one is a little.
I think honestly, it's kind of back to that whole Hunter Renfrow comment. It's just like we throw away people like Greg Ward that consistently get 110 points, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, pick him up on the waiver wire in other leagues and let him play for you and get his 8 to 10 every week. You know, I mean, we'll see what happens, but he ain't going away, I don't think. Here's what I'll say about Argo, and then I'll go into my 2, and then we'll have a little bit of time just to free for all fire at each other. He's extremely competitive. He is passionate about fantasy. I love playing against him. I love beating him. He is 100% okay with winning every 5 years or once every 7 years. I don't think he cares about what his team looks like year over year. He is all in all 3 of the leagues basically that I'm playing with him in, and he's okay with that. And and here's what I'll also say: if it doesn't go right, he'll say it's because of something that didn't go right, like it's an injury or something, you know, freak show happened or whatever. But like at the end of the day, it's a very risky situation to be in when you're building a franchise long term. Is if you're all in for 1 year, okay, well, you get your money, fair enough, but then you're putting your money right back into it. So I don't personally believe in that strategy. I like to have a team that's built for the long haul. But Roman Scott has had a lot of success in a lot of different leagues, and his name's on the plaque in a lot of them, and I think he wants this one more than he wants any other one because it's the Big Daddy. So I wish him nothing but the best of luck. He's put together a pretty strong powerhouse offense, and he has some great defensive players, and we'll see what happens. But as we all know, anything can happen, and it typically does. And so he better be ready to move because he doesn't have any draft picks next year, right?
0. Corey, can I ask you guys both a question?
Sure.
Who would you guys, since we've just looked at both of them, be more worried about playing, Argo or Sin City?
This year I'd be worried more about Argo, and especially early on in the season. But as the season goes on, it'd be very interesting, to be perfectly honest with you. As some of those rookies get more playing time in the second half of the season, I would almost think that it's about equal. Is Jamar Chase not going to be equal to Keenan Allen by the second half of the season or close? Is Jalen Waddle not going to be better than Jimmy Schuster? I mean, then you look at the running backs. He's got a clear advantage at running back over everybody. I mean, like, is there a better running back other than maybe what Hometown Heroes had a few, like 3 good ones before Akers got hurt, right? Like if he gets 900 points from the 3 running backs, it's pretty much game over. I mean, I don't know. He's right in that strategy if he has, 2 defensive ends and 3 receivers that can put up points too. I just, it's risky, and he's a risk taker. So I don't know.
I don't think it's game over if he gets 900. I think it's going to be a problem. I mean, he could lose Keenan Allen and Juju to season-long injuries, and it's kind of a moot point, right?
Yeah. Who would you rather, Ben? What about you between Sin City and Argo? Who do you fear? Or
I don't want to.
I don't want
to play Argo in the first 5 weeks, and I don't want to play Sin City in the last 5. So, and to the point. If Roman has this team healthy and gets that bye and gets the playoffs, I sure as shit don't want to play this team. And I think Sin City's right there. I think that squad is right there. And I think next year when we look at both these squads, I think Sin City is going to be.
Do you know who's not going to be playing in weeks 15, 16, and 17? I bet Mr. Kamara. That's my guess, and I mean I don't know. I mean I sold
Sean
him.
Payton,
I just think this is a year that Kamara does not. He's not elite, and he's not a top 10 right now.
Sean Payton don't tank.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, I have a couple to do real quick. Well, not real quick because we're going to tear up Georgia a little bit just for fun and sport.
Corey's going to go for blood.
Cool. No, I actually don't have too much to say. Again, I'll get into the depth thing a little bit because I think that was a little bit misguided because I think Georgia, like Argo, loves his players more than
Why don't you talk about Be Cool? Why don't you get Be Cool his due?
So, Be Cool. I'm just going to rattle this off. I said he's got good value at quarterback with Matty Ice. The running back room is weak in general. Allison is the number 2 on the depth chart, could be consistent contributor on first and second down and goal line. I have him in 2 other leagues, so I'm kind of a fan of him. I think he might get more work than people think in order to preserve Mike Davis kind of long term. But I think Atlanta could turn into a shitstorm real quick this season too, so we'll see. Tevin Coleman, currently listed as number 1 back, but I think we've seen this movie before, and the rookie will probably get more snaps as the year progresses. And they also have 2 other running backs in that depth chart that are competitive in camp as well. Tevin Coleman is also a $210 salary, which I think it's a lot, especially because I don't think he'll get a ton of production this year. Cohen is not practicing, and I think the Bears are going to move on from him. So I think that's kind of that ship sailed. We'll see what happens toward the second half of the season, but I think by that time you'll either see Damian Williams or Herbert getting just as many carries or touches. So we'll see there. I then said I think Hill will receive 50 touches or less than 50 touches this year. So I've sold him off in a couple leagues. I don't think he's going to have a productive season. I think it'll be the Gus Edwards and Dobbins show. So that's what I said about the running backs. Wide receivers, I said no studs. He has a bunch of wide receiver 2s on decent contracts. I said it'll be interesting to see how Corey Davis fares in New York with a rookie quarterback. I believe he will underperform his season from last year, which was 183 points. Jacoby Myers is a sleepy PPR machine on a great contract and a good asset for him, even though he's not a big name. We'll see what happens in the future there. But for $8.64, I bet he outperforms the 126 points that he had last year, and I think he'll be up in the more 150, 160 range. Robbie Anderson should thrive as more of a complete receiver this year. He has both Darnold as a probably foreseeable upgrade at quarterback, and then he also has Marshall and DJ Moore taking a little bit of the pressure off of him. And I've heard he's being used in more the total route tree as opposed to just taking the top off the defense. So I think he could be a real, real value at the price. So I don't think his wide receivers are horrible, but past those three, there's not a lot on the roster. Tight
Feels
ends.
like a common theme.
What's that?
Feels like a common theme. Like pretty much a lot of the teams we've been reviewing this from top to bottom are relying on three guys to get the bulk and hoping that some other guys can get some play. Myself included.
Well, I mean, there's guys like Allison, I mean, Geronimo, he's been around for a while. Like, can he, find a role in Detroit? And then, Olszewski's at least a special teamer. He'll get some points. But yeah, I mean, the old BC getting hurt wasn't great. So he's done, right? He's done for the season, I think.
He's IR to next year, but to be totally honest, the way things were going, it's probably better for his career long term because he'll be able to stick around with the team and get another shot. But
well, at least he'll get a roster spot back, right? Can't move him to IR, but yeah. So I mean, yeah, he doesn't have a stud per se, and I don't think he's really got an elite wide receiver, but he's got three good ones that I think are going to compete this year and put up some points. So not horrible thus far. I think that's kind of a theme for him overall. It's just kind of he's right kind of in the middle or slightly below. So his strategy, obviously, on the tight ends is, he's got all the indie ones, and I think they all take a step back because of the quarterback situation, but also the rookies could, or the guys that they, play at quarterback. I think they're rookies or second year guys could, rely on the tight end position. Who do you play in a bye week? You'll have to figure that out. But Kylan Granson has been getting good reviews in camp and thus far in his rookie campaign, and Mo Alley Cox is the beastmaster himself in the red zone. So I don't know. It's a stack for sure. What else can he do? I don't know. And then I talked a little bit about carrying 5 DTs, none of which are predicted to outperform last year, which is interesting. I said his defensive ends it's a weak room outside of Guy Lawrence and D Ford. Ford will have to rebound off of 2 subpar years. And then what's the succession plan? He doesn't have any talent on his roster outside of those 2, and he doesn't have anything on the taxi squad, so it's a little bit bleak at the DN position. I put linebackers. AJ Klein is a question mark because of Milano return. Will he match last year's production, or will snaps reduce? My guess is that snaps are going to reduce. He's also getting older. Campbell should be a solid producer in Green Bay. And then we'll have to monitor where KJ Wright signs, and he could have 3 solid linebackers with decent fill-in linebackers and McPhee in the rest of the room. So he's not in horrible shape at linebacker, but he's again, overall theme kind of right in the middle of the pack. I didn't talk about the cornerbacks, and then I said it'll be interesting to see what Delpit does after the injury and to see if he performs to his trade value. Or not his trade, his draft capital, because he was, he's pretty high pick for a safety, injured all last year, and if he takes a step forward, we'll see. And then he has the 2 Houston guys that I think will contribute and put some points up on the board. So that's what I pretty much have for him. Other than overall, lots of 1-year contracts with $700 in cap coming off books next year, which is positive. He has all of his own picks next year, so he's holding those tight to the chest. I don't think he's a team ready to compete, or doesn't seem to be interested in doing so for the future because he's not very active. So that's kind of to my rant earlier about people that are just kind of right in the middle of the pack. They don't really do a lot other than just kind of what is afforded to them through the auction and the draft. They're not making trades. To me, I just don't necessarily understand what's the point of being in one of these mammoths if you're not gonna be aggressive or make some moves from time to time. I think he lacks overall talent on the roster. Will need to draft extremely well and use free agent money wisely to start rebuilding with a purpose. That was my overall theme for him.
I think that was a very good. I don't think I could really disagree with anything you said. I just want to again point out that. It seems to me that teams, you can almost just tell by looking at their future draft picks. If they only have their 6 picks, they didn't trade any, they haven't brought any picks in or sent any picks out. To me, that's an indication that, they're not that active. Now, I don't think I've seen many teams who end up winning this league that end up with only their 6 picks, so you want to talk about like a leading indicator to me of being maybe stuck not the bottom lottery pick type of team, certainly not a playoff team, but just that realm where you're just kind of saying stagnant out of the playoffs. And I think that's what you're very accurately describing. And
Well,
I'll tell you,
he can't get a stud if he doesn't, combine draft picks to move up, or he doesn't, somehow. I mean, being in the middle is kind of the worst place to be, in my opinion, right? Like,
Of
if
course,
you don't have
yes.
a team that's gonna compete to be in the
league, it's
playoffs,
devastating.
then like, what are we doing,
Yeah.
right? Like, why even? I mean, you got to compete, but at the same time, like, there's a smart way of doing it, right? I don't ever want to be in that, team 15 to 20 range, or
If you're drafting mid to late of a part of the round and you have only your own picks, there's a very good chance that you don't get any starters out of those picks.
right, exactly,
Right.
And
Because
that's
you're
scary.
going to reach for an offensive guy. You're getting like running back 12 or wide or 15 and wide receiver 10. And those guys aren't sure shots. And so that stuff's tough. That's why I give people a lot more slack for taking the sure linebackers than some of the other guys do. But that's just my cup of tea.
And I'm very sure that Be Cool and there's a few players on the lower end that I've talked to him about that I've sent that I think it's silly that he's not making smaller moves, at least to get, to start acquiring little pieces moving forward. So I would just encourage him to, be more active and, acquire picks, young assets, to improve the overall value of the team.
Yeah, and we don't know why people play in these leagues and why they don't, so it's not fair to, say that without having a response. It's just, you see who's doing things and who's not. And, I mean, I don't even look at his team, to be perfectly honest with you, because I'm not going to get a response, or there's not any action. So maybe maybe I just reached out to those folks more and tried to, bring it out a little bit more. But so far, you just kind of stick to the people that are doing things,
Well, I will say he's gotten back to me. We've had some good, we've had a little bit of back and forth, and he knows what I'm interested in. But, it's just like with me, I'm telling you, just send me a counter offer, because it just gives me, and when I say me, I mean, I think anybody, don't feel like you're insulting somebody by sending a counter offer.
Yeah.
Because
as long as it's warranted. As long as it's
I don't even care if it's warranted. Because you may, even in a smart alecky remark, you may ask for something that you actually want on my roster that I'm okay giving up in a totally separate thing.
Yeah.
So to me, just having any sort of response, just firing something back, even if it's outrageous, but to try to throw different pieces in, and you don't have to give away what you're looking for, but at least give a little hint at it. So the person who you're having the back and forth with can kind of bite, have something to latch on to.
I agree 100%. There's no hard feelings in a positive back and forth where you're both trying to
Changing the name of this podcast to George's Trade Corner.
Yeah. Right. We'll get him a special. We'll get him a special where he can just, go through all of his trade proposals.
It's dirty and dark, but there's a lot of action on that corner.
No action happens where it isn't dirty and dark, if you ask me.
God, back to the face fucking talk. All right, here we go. So what we've all been waiting for, a little bit of a Georgia Warhouse analysis. The last one of the analyses of all the team for the season happens to fall to our main man, Mr. Georgia W. Warhouse, better known as Kobe J. I don't get that one, but we'll let it slide for now.
How do you not know?
Is he the hot dog eater?
No, it's the Kobe Johnson reference of the guy that CEH killed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Don't you remember that? That was like on one of our first podcasts when my mom was saying why I didn't like him because he killed a guy named Kobe Johnson.
You know what? I might have been so stressed out of trying to produce the first podcast or drunk. I don't know. Like I've gotten better.
I'm a big fan, man. I don't miss a word you guys say.
Well, that's great. Appreciate that, Sean.
That's why there's a couple people who have great names because they changed them based off of our content.
Oh, I know that. I've seen a
Lazy
couple
Bears. Lazy Bears is amazing.
Yeah, that is a good one. All right. So without further delay, I said, and I'm going to read these off, and then you can stop me at any point. It's not bad. I mean, honestly, I will say, out of all the teams I reviewed, I think your team is very, very smartly put together. And you don't have a lot of shit contracts, and you have a lot of balance, and you know what you're doing. That's with 100% certainty. Now, where it kind of starts to fall apart a little bit is I think you love players more than what the market loves them, and that's okay. I mean, like but in your defense, some of those players are cheap contracts, and they could outperform they're going to outperform their salaries. So it's an interesting analysis. I don't think necessarily that you're a walk-away winner of the division by any stretch of the imagination. So I think we need to settle our expectations a little bit there, G-Dub. You're going to be in a dogfight. But we're going to get to the meat of it. So in the running back room, I said, well, the Giants quarterback is kind of a make or break year for Daniel Jones. I think he's got the weapons. It's a cheap contract. I mean, it should be fine. It's going to be up and down. Hopefully he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. But I don't think you're in the top half there at quarterback. But that's, neither here nor there, really. Running back room. Antonio Gibson has a real chance to be a stud. Okay. This year will tell us a lot. Is he a product of Rivera's system or a complete back? I have a hard time buying into him as a top 15 dynasty running back, but he has a little wear and tear and is explosive and fun to watch in open space. How much will McKissick eat into his reception totals? And will there be a TD regression from 11 that he had last year? Okay. We've not ever seen him have a huge workload. All right. So what happens when he's getting 180 to 220 touches? Is he going to get that wear and tear on his body? Is he going to lose some of his explosiveness? We'll see. I think he's a great asset. He was a hell of a draft pick. And he's a stud, but I think this year will tell us a lot about what his role is going to be moving forward. How's that sound, Georgia?
Good. I'm going to let you guys do your thing. I'll come in at the end.
Okay. I think also Washington's offense is going to be better, and I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be able to move the ball, which should mean positive return for Gibson, whether it be more possessions or longer drives or things of that nature as well. So
goal line backs, more goal line opportunities.
Yep. So I mean, I think he's a stud and a great asset. So no complaint there. James Robinson has little to no chance of repeating his rookie year numbers. Okay? I think that's a fair statement. I don't think anybody on this podcast thinks he's going to score 273 points or more. Ben, do you think he's going to score 273 points or more?
I don't, but I also think Trevor Lawrence is next coming of Christ. So if there's a chance he's as good as Joe Burrow was out the gate,
who do you think
that offense is putting up? Well, hold on. And their defense isn't good enough, and their offense is putting up 45 points and losing or whatever the fuck. There's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. And that's again, I don't think he will.
I think that's probably more of a positive for ETN in the role he'll play than Robinson. I think in order for Robinson to be effective on first and second down,
the goal line carries.
Hold on. For first and second down, though, like you're throwing if you're behind first and foremost, and so you're not going to get goal line rushes when you're down, 45 to 24, and you're trying to come back. You're going to get
I think
long
they're just
offensive
shootouts.
receiving touchdown. So I think on first and second down, in order for Robinson to have the year, they're going to have to try to control the game. He's going to have to pound the ball in first and second. He's going to have 10 plus TDs, and there's no way he's catching 60 balls this year. And that's I think he was on pace for, I think he had 55 or something like that last year. So I think it's unrealistic to think that James Robinson's going to outperform his numbers from last year. But that being said, he's a $4 player. There's not a better contract at running back in the league. There might not be a better contract in the league entirely, right? So, like, to George's point, I would rather have him as my number 3 running back on my team than pretty much anybody except for maybe a couple of different GMs, because he's cheap, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's a good football player. I just don't think he's ever going to perform to the level he did last year. So
Meyer likes using 2 backs a lot, man.
Right, but Meyer wasn't the guy that drafted him either, so we don't know what he's going to do moving forward.
I know, but I just, again, man, I think they're going to play up tempo. I think they're going to put a lot of points up. And if they put a lot of points up, that's not necessarily, that's just moving with tempo. You move you need 2 running backs going in and out, and that puts the pace. I just think he can be like, can he do 200? Sure, man.
I think 200, 180 to 220 is probably the range I'd have him at, but that's just a guess. I mean, it's just a guess. So I do like the prospects of Huntley, Felton, and who was the other one I liked on here? Did I miss one?
I got Elijah Mitchell.
Oh
I
yeah,
got
Elijah Mitchell. So I think
Antonio
that's
Williams.
smart. I think those three, depth pieces that have a chance. Probably Elijah Mitchell is the one that stands out the most. But I do like Felton. I think they're going to use him in kind of an interesting speed role and as kind of a gadget player. So, some dart throws that I think can have some success. I think Jeffrey Wilson, to no fault of Georgia, that was a tough tag, right? Like you took a risk on it. You thought it was going to work out. It didn't. That's not something that you should be punished for. But I think he's done, right? So that's a tough salary. I don't think he'll ever get back to a opportunity in San Francisco with Sermon and Mitchell and Mostert there. So I think that's a tough salary to carry for 3 years. But you do have some young talent, and if one of those guys hits, you're in a really good position. And you've done a smart thing by owning basically everybody but the two top running backs in San Francisco. So that's good. Good stack there. You got the third, fourth, and fifth guy on the depth chart. G-Dub, pretty smart move. The wide receiver room. Okay, solid wide receiver room that lacks a superstar as of right now. That's what I see. Now, Higgins will be the best receiver in Cincinnati this year. That's my prediction. I think he'll outperform Jamar Chase and he'll outperform Boyd. So that does probably put him into superstar status, and I think he'll outperform his numbers from last year. So I think he's a stud. I don't know why you're trying to move him. Maybe you see it as a long-term play that Chase is going to be the guy. But I think if Burrow's throwing it 45, 50 times a game and they're a throwing offense, man, I think he's a hell of a wide receiver too, unless you can get multiple first rounds for him. So I really like him. I like the stack of AJ Green and Christian Kirk. I think one of those guys is going to be productive for you this year. Actually, the Dez, what's the stud receiver there that was talking up AJ?
Hopkins?
Yeah, Hopkins was talking up AJ Green, and apparently he has a little bit of juice in the tank. So if he can, you have a really strong receiving room. I've already talked a little bit about Quez Watkins, and they think that he's kind of been the best receiver in camp thus far. Pittman, I think, can be a really solid wide receiver too in his career if they can find out the quarterback position. I don't think he'll ever be an elite wide receiver one, but it's a solid wide receiver room. Again, no bad contracts either. I don't think there's a bad contract long term in there, and so you're in a very smart position, right? But you don't have a superstar. And then we'll see what happens with Quintez. He could be a guy, or he could be, if he gets to the level that Jacoby Meyer is in New England, then you have something, right? And I think that's probably a pretty good comparison for him. Like, you get 12 to 15 points a game from him, you're in good shape. So moving on to tight ends, I'm just doing this without looking at my notes now. I like Parham. I think what you've done here is smart. You took a risk on Herndon. I think I traded to him. So far, it hasn't sounded like it's working out for him, but I think O.J. Howard could be an absolute stud with Brady this year if Gronk or Brait aren't healthy. So I think you're really in a good position there, and Parham's made some noise already early in camp. He's not going to be the number one there, but if there's an injury that happens, he could, supplant Cook. And he's also being used a hell of a lot in the red zone from what I'm hearing. So I own him in 2 leagues. I think that's a pretty good 1-2 punch at tight end with Herndon being the wild card. All right. Now we're on to the defense. Okay. So far, you okay, Georgia? Is this?
I'm taking it all in, brother. Just taking it all in.
So for defensive tackle, I said obviously he doesn't care about them, so I won't worry either. And then I put, here's where it gets interesting. Defensive end. Trace Flowers should have a standout year in Detroit and produce over 150 points. Draymond Jones should increase production over last year and is a solid young prospect on a cheap contract. And then you have the two other fill-ins. Brown is a rookie listed on the depth chart at third, and then you have the Omenju. So I put you lacks depth if injury occurs. I don't see your depth at defensive end. So why don't you start there and explain to me why your depth at defensive end is any better than who was it? Hot Mess that you're kind of attacking for that.
Okay, you want to finish the rest?
No,
of the
I mean, I think this. I'm not calling you out. I'm just asking because I don't understand it. So why doesn't he have depth but you do?
Okay, well, hang on. So I will say that of my position, probably of all of my positions, I'll say I just pulled up his thing here as well. He has Kerry Hyder and Lawson. Okay, now I think that Hyder was in San Francisco and played last year because Bosa was hurt, and Lawson, wasn't anything particularly special. He's not particularly young. So I mean,
But do
he's
you?
not
I mean, at the
an
end of the day, do
up-and-comer.
you feel like
And
you have depth? I mean, I don't see depth.
I think that the three that you mentioned and the kid in Houston will be a starter. He's not a depth piece. He's a legitimate starter. So now the defensive end, I would love to have it one more guy.
Okay.
And I will. And let me just say this: I am not Argo to where I am sitting here arrogantly and saying my roster is done.
Okay.
I'm looking at my roster not in terms of a completed masterpiece, but only in terms of assets and values and needs and surpluses. And so I let me just say this: stay tuned at the defensive end position for me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Stay tuned. But I think as it stands today, I would put my top three up against whoever Hot Mess's third is a wild guess to me, because I have three starting defensive ends. Draymond Jones, I believe, is a breakout candidate.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm taking a gamble on him, but he's $10. And defensive ends, are the most expensive defensive position. And so I know if I get hurt on one, I could be in trouble. But again, I have, I don't feel like I'm done at that position.
But you do have a lot of
down,
depth.
I'm good.
You do have a lot of depth in other positions, so you've set yourself up with kind of, we'll arguably call it a weak spot at defensive end off the depth piece of it. But then you got three studs at linebacker, and you got Levante David, you have Kirksey, and you have Kaiser. And not only do you have Kaiser, but you backed it up smartly with two other Rams linebackers, just in case he's not the guy anymore. So you have Ernest Jones, right?
Three.
So yeah, so three. I'm sorry. Yep, you have pretty much every linebacker in a Rams uniform other than Leonard Floyd, I think. So I mean, I think you've done a really smart job there. Like you have the two studs, and then one stud for sure is going to come out of LA, if not 1.5. So
right.
I think you're in an elite position there. At safety, I said you're set at Boston, Elliott, and Johnson, and then you have a couple other fill-ins as well. So, again, I'm not attacking you have a very solid taxi squad. I put you have a very solid constructed team with no real holes. Doesn't possess superstars on offense, but has depth, youth, and veteran play at every position. He loves to stack players from the same team and position. You do it a lot. Like you definitely stack, and you're conscious of that. So it's a strategy you employ. I said you don't have any bad contracts outside of Wilson. I said you're built to win now, but he's probably a few pieces away from being champion. And I said he has solid draft capital with little free agent money coming in next season. So my overall theme for you is I think you're at the top top of the mountain, and I don't think you're quite there yet. And it's going to get a little bit wonky if you don't make it there in the next year or two. So,
well, I will say this: number one, what my team will look like in a year or two, I promise, will not be this team.
With over 100 transactions this year,
I'm not worried. I am in my philosophy in this league is to almost just be like in a not in still water, but living like in a current, to where I'm constantly picking and replacing. And I think that is to go back to the thing with Sin City, where you're like, oh, he's good for 5 to 8 years. I would be moving that thing. I would see how this year goes, and I would probably be trading one of those top 4 picks by the end of the season. By next season for sure. Because I want to cash in it whenever any player gets at their highest value. I'm going to try to move them to get a little bit younger, because to me, this league is a race to stay competitive and also to keep your contracts, as many first-year contracts as you can maintain.
Yep. Listen, there's no doubt in my mind that you know what you're doing, Giorgio. Like when I look through your team, it's just like it's solid. It's solid from start to finish. And it's complete. And there's no arguing that. Now, whether or not you get there by making 100 transactions like you do, or you stay there by making 1 or 2, and you just draft well and are smart with your money and whatever. It's interesting, but
Yeah.
again, I don't see a team that unnecessarily jumps off at me on the screen until you look at the fact that you're not in really any trouble anywhere. If you have an injury or two, you have people to play at every position, and you have some real upside in a few players as well. So I think it's
I've and just to get back to my defensive tackles. Now, at one point, I had Ed Oliver and Sheldon Richardson that cost me $80. Ben came in and took Richardson off my hands, but in exchange, the big piece I got was Ernest Jones, and he was a guy I was really coveting because I do want to lock in.
because
That
Ben talked
Rams
about him, right,
linebackers.
in one of our podcasts. I think Ben
Y-
talked
yeah.
about him heavily.
No, he hold on. I want to go
No,
on
but-
record real quick. The
that?
second I drafted him,
Mhm.
Georgia was sending me trade offers.
That's true.
The second I drafted him, he's like, "No, dude." He's like, "Look, you got a
Well, he
Raiders
knows.
guy. I got 2 Raiders guys." I could tell he wanted to stack the position. It actually took a lot longer for us to figure out what was working and what approach we wanted to do. I might have got.
Well, George is in LA. He knows what's going on there, right? I mean, he's basically at camp every day. He's watching. What do you think Georgia does for a living?
I'm actually paid by the Rams. I'm on the Rams staff.
Exactly.
So, but no, that just to revisit that deal, I gave up Richardson, Chandler Jones, and he was a hard guy to give up. Although I am hearing rumors he wants out of Arizona, which is weird. And Justin Stranad, who I think that was the guy that was hardest for me to give up, because I think he's going to be good down the road.
That's the guy I wanted the most, by the way.
And I sent
I hope
sent
that-
him to you originally.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise. That was a guy. I think I tried to get out of that, and then you fucking stuck on it.
I
but
did.
I
did.
want.
I think he's going to start this year.
Yeah, and I wanted to get the 6 back, but yeah, so I kind of looked at it as okay. I'm getting, I'm doing kind of an even. I think a better than even swap with Jones and Ernest, David and Chandler Jones. I thought was pretty even, and then I was giving up Richardson, but I was also giving up his $51 defensive tackle contract.
Yeah.
And I will tell you guys, that I really believe in Jordan Elliott, and you can confirm this with who did I just do the deal with to get him? When I gave up Oliver for $30 to get a 4th and Elliott, because I think that the defensive tackle position, there's only a few that are really great, and I traded away Aaron Donald knowing that there's just not going to be a better, that was the guy that I gave, that was, you Aaron Donald, you're giving up that position because no one is going to fill those shoes. But, he still put up zeros and stuff. And so you kind of look at that to me, I'm like, if I could get somebody to give me 100 points for $1 or $2, and I think Jordan Elliott I think he's going to start, and I think he's going to, not be, he's not going to be a 200-point guy, but I think he'll give me the 6 to 8 points a game. That's all I would need from that position.
Well, you are a gentleman and a scholar, especially within the fantasy football community, Georgia. There's no arguing that. I miss seeing you a little bit in the chat room. I think ever since your timeout. What, didn't you get a timeout this year? Did you?
No, I haven't got this is the longest I've gone by a lot of not getting suspended.
Well, let's keep it that way. You're a changed man. The Dynasty Brothers
he gets a vent on the podcast enough that he doesn't have to fucking blow the chat up in 2 over aggressive ways.
That's not wrong. That is a very fair statement.
I think
for sure.
I think the new improved G Dub is awesome. I didn't know the old one, but I sure like the hell out of this one. So
they're both amazing. No, they're all the same.
So that wraps it up, boys. I think we did a pretty good, crisp show today. It was a lot of fun. We're at 2 hours. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to discuss in the next 10, 15 minutes? I have a call that I have to jump on because I do have a job like everybody else.
I think that your topic about the whole COVID impact of guys, that I think that's kind of interesting. And, not so much in this league, but just because we're all, I'm sure, doing redraft, a friends and family league or something like that. And, would you like the Lamar Jackson situation where he's had COVID twice and won't get the shot?
I ain't touching Lamar Jackson this year with the 10.
Yeah. So, are you looking at guys in your roster in the back of your mind, when you hear about, say, Cole Beasley, who's adamantly against it and publicly against it, does that make you think, Jesus, it's just a matter of time before he's going to be in close contact or he's going to get it and he's going to be out for a while?
Here's my thoughts. I think we could do a whole show on the COVID thing, and it could be really interesting because I think we're three very intellectual folk that have difference of opinions, but we're also not we're not dramatic in a way where we're going to not be rational. And I've been talking to Ben and Roman and even Jason offline about this stuff, and it's just an interesting dynamic, and there's so much to it. From a political standpoint, but from a player standpoint, I think, yeah, you absolutely have to kind of look at that stuff, right? Like you have to look at the teams who are following the rules and the guidelines. Does not mean that they're not going to have any, slip ups, right? But there's definitely going to be games, I think, that are going to be in jeopardy again this year. And there's going to be players that are in jeopardy, and they're not going to have a tolerance for it, right? Like, maybe not for the superstars. There might be guys that miss 1 or 2 games and then they're back in the starting lineup. But there's going to be guys, especially in this league, that are on the cusp or kind of in that gray area on their own team, and they're going to get axed before someone else that's vaccinated 100%. That's just a reality. So I think you have to kind of be watching that, and there's no real way to watch it until it happens. So it's going to be very interesting. There's going to be a lot of fall off that happens from people that get COVID and they were the 4th or 5th man on the roster. Next thing you know, they're replaced by someone else that's on the taxi squad. So it's going to be pretty dynamic, I think, in that regards.
But are you purposely I definitely don't want to talk about the politics side of it, but will that be I think it will be a tiebreaker if, say, you're just like in a 12-team friends league or something like that? Or,
I don't think we'll know who's vaccinated or not really until it becomes a problem. Like, it's not like we can go on a list and find out. I mean, which teams are by percentage points. I think you can find that, but individual players, I don't think you really have that list. But you can make your assumptions. The people that aren't are the ones talking about not being vaccinated, right? So,
yeah.
I mean,
Cole Beasley or
I'm not drafting Cole Beasley because I don't like him personally, but as a football player, I don't know him personally. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, I think you have to be concerned. Not only has he gotten it twice, what's he doing to get it twice? Okay. And that has to have a wear and tear on your body a little bit. Like, the first time he got it, he said he wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I mean, how did he perform towards the end of the last year? He didn't, he wasn't killing it in the playoffs from what I remember. But
what do you take? What's your take, Ben?
I think you guys are too centric on the people who are actually vocal about it. The fact of the matter is Minnesota Vikings are 80%. In the front office, the most pro-vaccine, and their team is the least vaccinated in all of the NFL, right? So you have Zimmer out there who's finally just losing his fucking shit because he understands what an edge you lose in this type of percentages. There's actual things that you can go forward and say, look, man, we might lose 2 fucking games because we lose a quarterback and our best end and our running back because of fucking close contact, where if they're vaccinated, they're not going to do that. Now, I would like to say that I think it's a fucking aggressive way that the NFL is going at it. I don't really think they did a fair justice of just dropping this type of fucking hammer on people. There's not a lot of wiggle room. It's basically you kind of have a choice, but you don't. You don't have a choice. We're going to weed you out if you don't, and do it or fucking do. And I don't like that personally. But at the same time, I thought about it in 2 ways. One, it's going to be fucking crazy because, you're going to cut somebody because they're not vaccinated because they're a fucking risk to your team because of the way the current rules are set up. It's going to happen. But guess what? You're also going to have coaches who are going to take risk on high talented players and say, fuck it, I'd rather have best guys. I could see Bill Belichick literally being like, we don't fucking care if you're not vaccinated. We'll take all the best talent. And then what? Then they're really good and they just have good protocols and maybe, sweep some stuff.
Maybe that's a 2-year plan then, though. I mean, it's not going away.
It doesn't have to be a 2-year plan. We don't even know. Right now, like you said with Lamar Jackson, I mean, you talk about somebody so important for their team. That's a real problem, and we have Kirk Cousins who's just he's into conspiracy theories and shit about microchips. Fucking Christ. I get it. I'm all okay with the my body, my choice. I want to wait and see and understand what's going on. The NFL is not giving you that choice, even though they say they are. They are not giving you that choice.
They can't afford to give people that choice necessarily, though, Ben. It's not like I think
What the
here's
fuck
what
are you
here's
talking
here's what I'll
about,
say
dude?
about it. Here's what I'll say about it.
That's a ridiculous statement.
What's a ridiculous statement? It's a fucking
You can't
billion-dollar
give
business.
somebody a choice?
It's a business. It's a business. You have a privilege and a right to play in the NFL. That doesn't mean that you get to fucking keep your job, right? You have been given the information.
Cool, I signed a contract.
Here's the
without that, and
reason
you just
why
threw
you
on
have
me.
it. If you don't get the vaccine, this is going to be what your life looks like if you don't get the vaccine. It's going to be shit. That's what requires so we can protect our assets that are vaccinated, just like I protect it. You know, I mean, like we could get into this whole thing.
You sound like that's fair. I don't think that's fair, and I understand it's a business.
But
I
that's
was
the way the
first
world
fucking person
works.
to say it,
It's how the world works in general.
Okay.
Like we are not all given complete freedom to do as we please. There's rules and regulations for all of us. I think the problem is for some of these folks, they don't like going to team meetings. They kind of like sitting on Zoom meetings. So maybe they're using this as an excuse not to have to jump through some of these hoops. Oh, really? Because you think that to me, it's a fucking privilege to be a professional athlete. So like, if I had to make
we're
a
gonna
decision,
keep calm, Corey. You're
no, I just don't.
Here.
I don't understand the rationale. Nobody has given me a rationale as to why, other than fucking conspiracy theories about why they wouldn't choose to get vaccinated. Like, I just don't
That's
get
not
it.
true.
I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I've
And like,
seen in
I
our
would love to
chats
have the
two people give
conversation
you
with
that
someone.
there was-
Huh?
I've seen in our chats 2 people, Roman and Jason, tell you their opinions.
What was the reasoning? Not that they chose not to. What was the reasoning for it? Personal decision?
That's not enough.
That's fine. Where I struggle with, I don't understand what leads you to that conclusion. Now, if someone said, you know,
I don't
here's the
understand what
statistic-
leads us to where 100 people need to get vaccinated when the science doesn't say it's necessary. It's better if it goes faster, but the
the
science,
science
doesn't
doesn't say it's necessary.
for 100% of people to get vaccinated to get under control of it and to be, dude.
Yeah,
come on.
but that's not the question, Ben. The question is, why does the NFL require
giving a
people to
choice.
get vaccinated? Right?
Can I
Like, it's a business. It's a
question?
business.
Is it-
It's a business
how much-
decision.
Let me ask you guys a question, and just to kind of break it up, because we're getting a little bit into the politics side. What?
Probably a bad
Well, how-
decision to even talk about it.
Well, no, but how much
No,
of it is? But let me answer your question, because I'm not sure about this. How much of it is league protocol versus individual team protocol?
All
It's
league.
league. It's
all
all league
league.
protocol, and then
All league.
But the teams then react to that with their personnel, just like with how they're going to.
well, they don't. Then they have hoops to jump through if they don't get people to a certain level, right?
But
Like,
like Mike Zimmer coming out and saying, "Hey, like him."
he didn't have a quarterback. It's
Right, I
not
know.
like
So
you can play football like through Zoom meetings like we all can do for our work.
He's
It's
also
different like from a
pro-vaccine.
private
Right.
organization, right? Like I
So
can do my job through Zoom for the most part, right? You can't play football without being in close contact with each other. It's impossible, right?
So how much of this entire situation impacts your feelings towards players on our teams? Like that's what we're here to discuss, right? Like, I mean, this whole thing exists. The argument you guys are having exists, and you could have it here, you could have it, in any sort of media. But I guess I think what's interesting to me is, are you actually bringing it down to your team level? And would you be concerned if you knew, like, if you had a checklist of guys on your team, vaxxed, unvaxxed, would that impact your
for the
decisions?
mere decision of I'm more likely to be around unvaccinated players and get COVID. And if I've made the choice to be a team, whatever you agree with it or not, to be a part of my team for this year, and my money depends on it, I'm not going to subject myself to people that are unvaccinated because the risk is higher. That's science. There's no arguing that. So as someone that's vaccinated, I would prefer not to be around people that aren't, right?
But
Because
you're
my
not-
risks are higher.
you're not gonna
You
get-
still have
you're
a
not-
risk. You still have a risk regardless, but the
You're not
risks
gonna get-
are higher.
You're not going to get COVID from your
You're
fantasy
not
team.
answering the
I'm
fucking question.
I'm asking about your fantasy team, not if you were in the locker room.
Get
with
off
those
of the
guys.
politics
Oh,
of fucking COVID
Well,
and taking
no,
or
I
not
mean,
taking. Let's
do
talk
I
about
care
how
if
it
someone's?
affects
Yeah,
your
you have to
rankings.
care because if
Right.
they're unvaccinated, then they have a higher risk of not playing in that many games. So if everything else is equal, if I have to choose between J.K. Dobbins and I don't know, fucking Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and one of them's vaccinated, I'm probably taking the
Right.
vaccinated guy. I
We're
mean,
not privy to that information, but you'd have to take into consideration if you actually care about
Right.
winning. I mean, fact of the
100%.
matter is, to my fucking point, they're not given a choice. It's a rigged deck.
They're
and
not.
We're still making.
They're still making decisions not to do it. So if that's going to happen, it is what it is. But the fact of the matter is, I have one league. I only had Kirk Cousins and I was going to wait to pick up a fucking quarterback. I fucking overpaid for another quarterback immediately because I'm like, holy shit, Kirk Cousins doesn't care if he misses 5 fucking games over sitting next to somebody who had COVID. It doesn't matter if he has COVID. That's the problem. That's the thing
You're
about
right.
the rule.
Yeah.
It's an exposure protocol. So it's not even that you have COVID.
100%.
It's that you're next to a dude with COVID and no vaccination. You missed 2 fucking weeks. It's
Right.
not a choice, dude. And
I don't disagree with you, Ben. It is not a choice. It's not a choice.
so
and it's moving
it's
to that in a
mandatory,
lot of different
regardless-
categories
Well,
beyond
but-
football.
regardless.
But can you say it's not a choice when guys are in fact making a choice?
Well, I mean,
Well,
they're not
that's
giving you
fine,
an
but-
actual choice, is what he's saying. He's saying
Yeah, I understand.
pushing you towards
my-
the choice.
My point is, I think you guys are both making very valid points. There is a literal choice you can make,
Right.
but they're putting a severe consequence if you
100%.
don't choose the way that they want you to.
They're making you
Outside-
miserable
so
if you don't.
So I think you guys are both making the correct, like you're both saying the right thing from the
Outside of
perspective.
winning the Super Bowl, Kirk Cousins will be cut next year. Outside of winning the Super Bowl, and even then, Kirk Cousins will be cut next year. 100%.
Hey, maybe they
because
can get a good quarterback.
Jeopardizing.
that.
Well, it doesn't matter. We're talking about decisions on keeping a player based on their
Right.
decisions on their
Yes.
body and what they
Yes.
believe and how they want to treat it or what they want to put in it. Okay, so that's just is what it is. If you want to take your beliefs and go down in the fire and fucking die with it, that's what people are going to do.
There you
The
go.
fact of the matter is, the numbers are pretty staggering team to team, summed up, but we don't really know the statistics. We don't know
Right.
how many people are doing it. I hear even though the Vikings are the least vaccinated team, there's still majority are vaccinated. So it's not like we're talking about half the league's fucking revolting and not
No.
doing it, but there are people who aren't. And like, hey, sorry, man. Yeah, Georgia, I want the list. I want to know every fucking guy that's on it because first of all, in a dynasty league, I don't want somebody where GMs are going to make decision on whether or not they'll sacrifice their fucking team and show up and be fucking.
What about
their
Vegas and the
players.
gambling and all that shit? It's like they have to report injuries, right? They have to
I mean, I know
report
it's what
injuries
it is,
before you
but-
play someone. Don't you have to report like vaccination status because you don't know if your team's going to be involved with another player's team? And
That's
who's,
an interesting question.
right? Like,
If you-
why?
it's not-
those lists have to be public for every team you're playing. You have to know. Listen, you guys aren't fucking. I don't know. I mean,
Close contact, if you have a vaccination, is a 2-day turnaround. Close contact, if you don't, it's like fucking 2 weeks, man.
well, I
Like,
guess
so
they're going to be
without even
positive. If they're
test.
negative, they're not going to be on the trip. You're right. I mean,
It's
Well,
just
so-
like there's
Well, Ben,
huge
can I-
dramatic.
let me just say this. So I, have not to get my personal stuff, but I have a business where I'm, I need to be active with, on site with customers at a moment's notice. I lined up to get the vaccine the first time I could, not because I thought I was going to die or anything else, because I know if I were to get COVID and, had to go through the, tell people whatever else, I would lose business. So that's like a real life
so it's a real it's the same
consequence
thing.
of it. And I think that it is the same thing. I think that that's just the reality of the situation that you're in. And you do have, listen, all these guys guys are retiring in what camp is that where guys are dropping in New York and the Giants are like, guys retire for all sorts of reasons.
The
Guys don't play
Saints guy
football.
just retired. The other
for
quarterback.
you don't have to play football and make $1 million, millions of dollars a year to play a game. That's a choice as well. And the reality is that whatever word your restaurant owner, I mean, I'm sure that, my God, the last thing, I don't know what it's like in Costa Rica, but I'm sure if your staff had a thing down there, that would be a fucking problem. And whether, whatever your position is on it from a purely business perspective, as a player, as a business owner, as a general man, team owner, which is a business, much bigger business than mine, obviously, it's a business decision.
That's
at
fine.
this
But
point.
I was the first to get vaccinated. I got my vax. My entire staff, except for 2 people, went. Did I fire them? No.
Right.
But you
I didn't
as a
fucking
business,
fire him.
but in that
I
situation,
can,
as a
and I
business
can go
owner,
say, hey, you're fucking selfish and you're doing this. It's not going to jeopardize my business. That's not how things are fucking set up.
but as
okay?
a business
It's-
owner, then you have the right to test them every day before they come into work and make sure that they're not positive, and then send them home. And if they can't work, they can't work, because you can't allow people then to come into your business environment and infect everybody else. Like if right.
I also want to test for the cold. I also want to set for the flu. Like, where would we stop, man? Like, I believe if the majority of the people are doing their fucking job, we're going to win this.
What if it was
And I
dengue?
don't want to fight the fucking people. What do you mean with about dengue? We've had dengue outbreaks. Fucking
I know, but you
huge ones.
can catch dengue from
do you
other
think-
people.
No, you fucking absolutely can by people not taking care of their properties and leaving stagnant
Well,
water.
right,
which
but
a lot of
what
people
my
choose
point
not to
is,
take care of.
would you want someone else walking into your environment that can knowingly pass you the feelings of dengue? It's a fucking horrible experience, from what I understand, right? Like,
What do you mean
I don't even care if it's
knowingly?
life or death. Like, I don't want to get someone's fucking sickness. If my
not
kids are
talking
sick
the
with the
same
flu and the common cold, I don't send them to daycare because I don't want to get fucking everybody at the daycare sick.
You're
It's not
talking
that
about
different.
somebody with COVID versus a vaccine. That's super fucking different, man. If I'm COVID positive and I'm sick, sure, don't fucking go to work. Don't go to work ever at all if you're sick. Okay,
Well, but we're talking about. Go ahead. I was just gonna say that we're talking about some things that are just out of all of our control. You're talking like what the CDC and all these guys are doing, which I think is definitely
it's
getting
the most
far more into the
political fucking
politics
thing of
right.
modern day.
Of course,
Like,
of
It's-
course,
it's-
have some
it's not a
wiggle room
win-win
or fucking
situation.
be a fucking cunt, dude. Like,
right.
that's
but,
my opinion.
But
I'm gonna go
but-
fire two people. Like, no, I'm
No,
not.
I didn't say you had to fire anybody. I'm just saying
No,
that
no,
you have to put
Dude, you're
protocols
acting
in
like I
place.
shouldn't be able to make that decision, man. Come on.
You should make
Well,
whatever decision you want to do for your business and the people that work there. That's
But
what
it-
you should do. I mean,
I would-
whatever you do make that decision based off of, that's your responsibility. You're the business owner.
But the response was pretty negative.
No, I'm just saying, we're passionately talking. What I'm saying is every business owner has to evaluate that situation and make a business decision based off their employees and the risk and the health of their employees. That's whatever business you are making. The NFL's making that decision in that same regards. That's all I'm saying. Now, do I have my own opinions about what the vaccine is and whether it's good and did I get it right away? No, I didn't. So I'm just saying from a business standpoint, the NFL has every right to put into place regulations and rules that limit the possibility of their players getting or
I never
bringing
said they
down their
didn't.
profits or their business.
I never fucking said they didn't.
Okay,
I'm saying
that-
the
so we
idea that they're
agree.
giving them a choice is a farce.
They're not giving them a choice.
They
They're
should
making the choice
say it's
for them
mandatory.
essentially.
Correct.
Essentially, they're
That's
right.
it.
Right.
That's it.
We agree. Yes.
But I'm not sure that the NFL themselves could do much different, though.
I don't
you
think
know,
so.
because I'm not. I'm
It's
not
too,
because
too much money. It's too much
Well,
money.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
care
I
about
mean-
health of the players. They just care
Right?
about the money.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, imagine some bullshit third cornerback coughs fucking COVID over DeAndre Hopkins or something like that, and now you're there or whoever. And there's a like, I mean, I totally get where like I'm sure the NFL just doesn't want to deal with it, and the easiest way to avoid it is through getting everybody is doing what I mean when Hard Knocks happened last year when they had the two LA teams. I was really impressed with how professional, with how they ran it and everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that they're actually
I think they do give a fuck. I do.
I think under the circumstances, they give a fuck because of the money involved, obviously. So,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I do
They
think
don't care
that
about
they
don't
do
care
care
about
about
player
the
safety.
financial side, which means that they do need the players to be safe, otherwise they lose money.
100%.
And I think that they've done actually a pretty good job of this. And yeah, it is in their best financial interest if all of the league gets vaccinated. Like
I
no-
can't
no
imagine
question
how
about it.
good the educational process and what the information and what's available to each player for them to make their own decision. I can't imagine how good that is. Okay, like I think it's a farce also to say that these players don't have the information necessary to make a good decision with their health and with their future. Okay, that being said, I have no opinion about what individuals decide to do with their own body, whether it's good or bad. All I'm saying, Ben, to you and to everybody else that's listening is I have not heard anyone give me reasons as to why they don't believe the vaccination at this point in time is a good decision to make. Now, if you want to say I have religious beliefs or I don't want to put something into my body that's not trusted, that's okay. That's part of your decision process. And I too was a part of that, making that decision for myself as well. I would just like to expand upon that and try to figure out more into what goes into that decision not to get vaccinated. Like, I just want to hear more data, more points,
Wait
more
and see what
things.
happens isn't a good enough answer, right?
Is it? I don't know. I don't know if it
No,
is.
no, no.
to be
I
honest
know
with
it's not a good enough answer for you because you just said you've never heard a good excuse, and that's exactly what Roman and Jason told you.
Well,
So
well,
I don't
saying
know what to
we'll
tell you.
wait to see what
say
happens.
nobody's
Okay,
giving you a
then
good excuse.
then
I
they
think
need to take the
personal choice-
responsibility.
Personal
Then
choice and waiting for Moderna.
I think people that are willing to say,
They
let's
are.
wait and see what happens, then they should probably take more, safety protocols not to be around other people that have made a choice to lessen the risk, if that makes sense. So then I don't think it's a free for all for those people to just go out in public, go out to the restaurants, do whatever they want, cough on me, do it. I mean, like, I don't think that's fair. So that's why you see people starting to mandate, okay, these are the people that are going to be allowed in public then. If you chose not to get vaccinated, where
It's a
we
big
provided
ass
for
rabbit
you,
hole, Corey.
then you
I
can
don't think
stay
we
at
should go down
home.
it.
Huh? I mean, isn't that reasonable?
I just don't
Cor-
think we should
ca-
on this rabbit hole. You're talking about personal rights and personal freedoms and personal choice.
It's not your
and that's
personal
all
right
we
to
do on
come
this
into my
podcast.
business with.
Dude, we don't do that on this podcast. Let's
Yeah, I
not
think-
talk about
I
it.
think
all
we're
right?
going
If
off
you
the
need
rail.
a good you're not. Yeah,
Can I
Okay.
just just to I'll just
I'm
my
telling you,
take
you
on-
don't want to hear it, man.
my take on what I'm hearing is that I will say that just because there is a personal choice available doesn't mean that one choice doesn't overwhelmingly outweigh the other choice.
I don't disagree with that.
and well, because I'm agreeing with you, I would say to Ben's side that it is there are lots of things that we thought were safe over the years, going back decades, that
Smoking.
turned out to be not that safe. So I do think that there is a rationale to say, I don't want to inject something that
100%.
didn't exist for something that else didn't exist a year ago, and now all of a sudden we're in this mad dash that we have to go get it, and there's pharmaceutical companies who are profit, like there's stuff
There's a
there
lot
that
to it for sure.
I think that I don't not understand when somebody says I'm nervous about getting it, and if this thing was around for 10 years, it'd be different. You'd have studies.
Georgia,
on
I
it.
don't care if you get it
So-
or not. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying there's
Yeah.
repercussions if you don't. If you don't, then you've made a
I
choice
agree.
that then narrows down your choices, because that's what has to happen in a lot of regards, right? Like,
Or I agree with you 100%. I'm saying that there are merits on both sides of the argument.
100%, 100%.
Without and I think that one of the biggest problems with this fucking whole process is that it's making people angry and going at each other instead of
I
hearing
don't
the
care.
other side.
I don't
you know?
care about whether you don't get the vaccination or not. I don't. I want all my friends to be healthy. I'm saying what I don't. I deconstruct the argument as to why not. So then says, well, they're taking away my liberties. They're not letting me go out in public. You made the choice not to get it. That's their other people's choice. That's the business's choice, is not to allow you in their business if you're not vaccinated. That's a freedom of choice as well. So that's where you start to get these different variables in this conversation. Like, you can't I cannot sit there and tell anybody that I don't think they have merit or a choice to wait. I think that's more than acceptable. But then after you've made that choice, you have to accept the response or the repercussions and the consequences of making that choice. Just like I have to accept the possible repercussions of getting sick or having negative reaction to the vaccination in itself or whatever it is, right? Like, I have to accept that risk. You have to accept the risk of not doing it. And those are two different camps, right?
And then we all accept risks, say with insurance, for example. You live in I'm in California. I don't have earthquake insurance. You'll say, well, it's a risk I'm taking.
Right.
It's now, if that happens, there's a consequence to it. Like, just as a hypothetical, like, there are consequences to your treatment. Just because you have a choice doesn't mean there aren't consequences to your choice.
And I don't want to speak for Ben, but he is right. He is right that the NFL is not actually giving the players a choice. They're siloing them into It's our way or the highway, basically. And to his point, he thinks that's wrong. And I say, well, it kind of is and it kind of isn't, because it's their business to make that decision. And
I would say,
players it's their business to either join that business or not be an employee of the business anymore. Maybe Maybe they get 80% of their salary and they have to sit out the year. That's, I don't know how they work through those things, but it's not the business's
It's
fault.
not the way they're doing it. I'm going to tell you that right now.
So
I don't know the
talking about-
rules. I don't know the rules, so I can't.
So let me ask you guys both
They're
a
going to take
question.
paychecks out of other people's fucking pockets because one guy wasn't vaccinated and turn teams against each other. It's fucking crazy, dude.
Well, let me
It's
ask you,
fucking
Ben,
crazy.
Ben, let me ask you guys both a question. Does the NFL really have a choice?
I don't
They
think
don't have
do.
a choice. Make it mandatory. Tell them you have to sit out the fucking season.
No, I'm saying, but does the NFL have any other option to do it better than they're doing?
The
Okay,
player
so what, they moved
association,
3-4 games last year. They did pretty fucking good last year.
but the money and the revenue and the fans not being there, and it's like they can't do
If
another
they
year.
want
and
to
not
keep
have
it, the chugging machine that it is with the billions that it makes, they should have made it mandatory.
Do you know how
They
much
just
it
let the
costs
cards lie.
for to be
But
daily
they
tested
but now
for
they're
1
not
week?
the bad guy. But now they're not the bad guy. It's the smartest play, but it's like a Satan play, man. It's like, oh, we're gonna give you a choice, but like they're literally
Right.
just fucking. They're the ones who shot you in the face
That is a chick.
Right?
You're right on that.
by
That is a
by
chicken shit
giving you a
approach.
choice. Otherwise, you would have just been like, walk away or don't walk away. People would have protested, not liked it, and people would have walked away or they would have got it. Now that's not the case. It's not. Presumably, you have a choice, but some of these players aren't going to understand what kind of repercussions they're going to get out for doing this. Now, I don't know. Maybe a guy like Bill Belichick's like, hey, fuck, the top 10% of the league is getting ditched by everyone. Let's just go scoop them
Right.
all up and
Yeah.
fuck everyone up. I mean, we'll have
Well, the
3
locker
quarterbacks
room
that should-
dynamic too. It's another social issue that's in a locker room that could destroy.
Imagine
a
if
team.
you have a team who's anti-vax. I mean, holy shit, they're going to the rack. They believe.
Listen, Ben, I love you, and you're a very reasonable person. Would never question the decisions you make with your business. I'm just saying from a standpoint, I'll always be able to kind of figure out, not always. I'll always try to take an argument and look at the merits of the argument and take my emotional opinion out of it. And that's all I'm trying to do with this is like, there are choices, you make your choice, then you gotta handle what comes next, right? Like, that's the only way you can handle this, right? Like, I don't think you can get into all the nuances and the science and the stats because a lot of it's just bullshit and unproven anyway, right? So it's like,
This is exactly the point, man. Like, unfortunately, what we're completely is disrespecting one side of the argument and one side of somebody's opinion, and just saying tough shit. Regulators say this is how you got to do, and take it or fucking fuck off.
I just want to
And
hear more from the other side as to why not, other than, it's my body, my choice. Like that's all I want to bring out. I'm not saying that I disagree with.
Choice was the left.
I'm not disagreeing with everything that someone brings up from that side. I just haven't heard enough of it. That's why I want that conversation extended. I just haven't heard enough that's changed my opinion necessarily one way or the other.
I hear
right?
plenty of it. We got people down the middle here, and I respect some of it. I don't respect microchip and fucking shit like that. Like, get the fuck out of here with that.
I mean, I sent you guys along.
I don't want. We all hold fucking cell phones. We're tracked 100 fucking 24 hours
Right.
a day. And first of all, nobody gives a shit about us. They just want to steal our data and sell it to people. And that's been happening for fucking years. So get the fuck over yourself.
I told
There's
you
no
that I
fucking
talked to
microchip.
I told you I talked to a doctor that I play basketball at that's in this shit every day. Like, he has no reason to lie to me. He's a Nigerian immigrant that's been here for like 25 years, played college football at Arkansas. Like, he's a
He's
good
trying to
dude.
send you.
Oh, Ben left.
Where'd he go?
He just got booted from internet. It's probably a good
Oh.
time. I don't even think I'm going to put this on the show, to be honest with you, because I don't want anybody getting the wrong impression. But it's a good. I like having these discussions, Georgia, because I think they're important. But the doctor told me, he's like, listen, man, people are getting positive tests now because the damn tests are so good, and the dead cells that they're infected with are still showing positive fucking cases. So it's like, there's so much going on with this thing that nobody really even understands still. But like, I just cannot I can't fathom why people are so like, oh, you're a sheep if you get it, you're doing what everybody wants you to do. It's control. They're never going to really, I'm just like, come on, man. This whole fucking thing is not just some big goddamn conspiracy theory for everybody to fucking have to, to sort through. There's pieces of it that are scary for sure, but like, there's just not that much control, like worldwide control over all of us that, would allow that to be the case. It drives me nuts.
I think whenever you get into a discussion, and I think you should let it play. But I think it's actually an interesting thing, and we're not a politics show, but I think this isn't something like everyone's having these conversations, and who cares? I don't care in terms of anything that I've said, but I think that the big problem with this stuff is that when you get into a discussion, your tendency to win the argument is try to push the other person to their extreme, like microchips or taking away freedoms.
My problem is,
I think that the way to ultimately solve this stuff is to chop the extreme argument and stop, and to try to find much more of the middle ground. That I
just
do
focus
think
on
exists.
one point at a time. That's my whole thing. Okay. People have a choice, right? They do, whether or not it's a good choice or not. They have a choice whether to get vaccinated or not. That cannot be argued. Now, are they being pushed into one choice because of the repercussions of not making that choice? Absolutely, I agree. Now, that being said, Is it the business's right to do so? Yes, it is, because it's their fucking business.
Right.
Do you have a choice as an employee to work for that business? Yes, you do. Okay. Is the business handling those decisions ethically, right? So are they giving them the information? Are they providing them the time and the necessary tools to make a good decision? You know, whether you say yes or no, who knows, right? Like that, this could be broken down to every single business and every point of the whole vaccination talk, right? But what people do is they're so already decided on one point that they don't want to have the actual siloed discussion of the thought process. Okay, so when someone says, "Well, the NF players don't have a choice," I'm like, "Yeah, well, they actually do." So then it makes me look like an asshole, and it makes me look like I'm a vaccination guy, which I'm actually not. I'm just like, they do have a choice, and they're NFL fucking athletes, and you know, shit, if it's me, I'm getting the fucking shot in my arm and I'm going playing football, you know, because I'm fucking, you know, I didn't work my whole life to fucking sit out 2 years, you know, like,
Right.
so I don't know. It's just people don't argue the correct way. They want to fucking, they just get too tied to the emotional aspect of winning an argument. They're not actually listening to what the actual argument is, right? Like piece by piece. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's annoying as fuck. You know, it's like, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm going to cut it out of the show.
Corey, I think that you'd be making a big mistake not to let this play through, not because we solved anything or whatever else, but you know, a lot of stuff was said that people should hear, and you know, and I don't think that, you know, you, I, or Ben, any of us should feel wrong, you know, bad about saying what anything was said here. I mean, I don't think that anything was said out of you know, spite.
No,
or
but it's like
thought,
Ben
or,
gets chippy
you know,
with me about like the business owner. I didn't say that he was a bad business owner. I'm saying I asked him
No,
a
you
question
did.
in a passionate way. I was like, how can you allow, if someone chooses, two of your employees choose not to get vaccinated, how can you allow them to come into your restaurant if you haven't tested them? And he's like, well, you judging my, I'm like, well, because you're putting everybody in the restaurant at risk then, aren't you? Right? Like if they're not going to wear a mask and they're going to work and they're going to serve food to me, like, aren't you like giving your customers more of a risk, you know? I mean, like,
well, but I think that everything comes with risk, and he didn't say that. I don't know how big his staff is. He said that two of the staff, including, you know, not even including himself, are all that, you know, so it is mitigated to a certain extent, and I don't know if he asks those members who are not vaccinated to wear a mask. That's probably what I would do. Say, you don't have to get vaccinated, but just wear a mask when you're serving people food, and you know, and understand that it is putting the business at risk. I mean, if there is you know, people, you know, if somebody gets sick and it gets traced back here, that could, you know, have us not in business for a little while. So, which is a risk.
yeah.
So it's about risk, both personally and then to your, you know, your financial opportunities, and to your job, and to your business, and to your football team, and everything else. So
I just don't think they have a
I think-
choice. They have to run the business the way it's supposed to be run. And if they have an opportunity to clean it up and give it the best chance to succeeding, and they're comfortable with their doctors and studies and things, you got to remember, not every one of those business owners is a fucking, you know, liberal. Like they're all people that have their own, in different cities and different environments, that have different ways of thinking, and they different, like, but everybody in organizations have enough information to make fucking decisions that are non-political based and are based off of fucking data and stats and statistics and experts, right? So like that's why I trust.
I think that's what's happening in the NFL. And that's why I don't think that the NFL, and they're certainly not a liberal ownership organization. I think that they're doing what they literally have to do, because it would be very detrimental to the business of the NFL if, you know, their star players, you know, somehow were around it or had to miss a game, and they had to, you know, have a big Monday Night Football game without, you know, either superstars. I mean, I think that the NFL is not giving the players a choice, because I don't think the NFL has a choice. I think if the NFL had its choice, it would be to just worry about running football teams and not worry about.
I mean,
all
nobody
this
wants
shit.
to be in this situation. I just think it's like, it's a bunch of misinformation. It's a bunch of irrational decision making in a lot of ways, and people aren't trusting people that they should trust. And yes, you have to be cautious of who you trust these days, but I go straight to the fucking source. I don't, if I want someone to fix my plumbing, like I don't go to a plumber, ask him to come over and then argue with him based off of the merits of his plumbing decisions, right? I don't know anything about
Right.
plumbing, right? Like if I want to know stuff about, medicine or what's going on in reality and what's not on the news and about COVID, I talk to a fucking doctors. I talk to the doctors that are working in different markets and different places, and I ask them their opinions. And you know what their answers are? They're usually pretty fucking honest, and they're not corrupt people. And they're saying we don't know everything yet, but I can tell you this: this is what's happening in the emergency room. This is who's getting it. These are the people that are more at risk. Like, so you do then make your decisions based off of that. And it's like, okay, it becomes pretty clear what the decision is, for me at least it did, right? So it's like,
Right.
okay, that makes sense, right? But everybody's situation is different, right? If you're a 25-year-old healthy dude and you're not hanging around anybody that you can expose to it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, but it's still kind of somewhat of a selfish decision if there's any chance that you're going to be around someone else that you could pass it to and they're not healthy, right? So
Well, and my take on, the shot, the mask, when Ben is talking about personal freedoms and all this and that, and he runs a restaurant, and I would, just for the argument's sake, say, well, Jesus, I am very much a no shoes, no shirt kind of a guy. Could I just come into your restaurant with, my boxer shorts and eat,
well,
or
Sharky's
somebody
you
go put some
could. It would be actually be welcome there.
Makes
But,
sense. I got to go
that's
there.
a good point, though, right? Like it's kind of like
we do things every day that we don't want to do. I mean, that you have to do because it's,
But people
particularly
tend
you're
to
walking
argue in that
somebody's-
way. It's kind of like, well, we don't test. What about car wrecks? People die every day in car wrecks. It's just fucking different scenario, man. Like we could play that game all day long.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what happens with the flu? Well, we know what the flu is now. We know how to treat it. We know what the risks are of dying from it. We know,
Right.
like, yes, it can kill people that have weakened immune systems, but more than likely, it's not going to kill a 40-year-old. Like
Right.
it's just all these stupid arguments for and against, like, are kind of childish in a way, if you ask me. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you really start breaking it all down, right?
Well,
So,
I think to solve problems, you take two opposing views and you start with the common ground. The common ground, I think, is none of us like any of this shit. We
Sucks.
all want it. We all want it to go away. Nobody's benefiting from this situation except for maybe the pharmaceutical companies or whatever. But
But you
at
have
the
to
end of
remember
the-
too,
at the-
Georgia, they've
at the
been
end of the
working on
day-
this stuff for a long time. It's not like
no, I
they
know,
just
I know.
started doing these, vaccinations
Yeah,
and
no,
testing against these viruses yesterday,
Yeah.
right? They've been working on this for years and years and years. And then
Right.
when you pump billions and billions of dollars into making it and figuring it out, and it's a worldwide project, you're going to figure it out, right? Like that's, I
Right.
mean, and maybe
Point
it's
being-
not 100% effective, but nobody said it was, I
Point
mean,
being, the whole situation sucks, and I just you have to have a attitude of we're going to wake up 2 years from now, and one way or other we're not going to be having the same conversations anymore. This thing is going to at some point get resolved.
it's not really that
And the
political anymore. Like we're getting back shut down. Nobody wants to be shut down. There's no political,
No, it
election. It's
sucks.
like it's
It
being
sucks.
shut down for the right because it's dangerous.
It sucks, right? And
Dangerous.
and I think that wearing masks and doing the shutdowns is playing defense. The way I look at it, the only offense we as a society can play is getting vaccinated. That's the only offense I think that we have. And so
I
I
feel like
say,
shit for a couple days. Like I don't
yeah,
think
I don't like it. I don't like getting needles and
No.
stuff, but no, for sure. And traveling to Hawaii, we had to wear masks on the plane, and you go to Hawaii and it's even more so with masks and so on than it is in California
Well,
right
yeah.
now.
The decisions
So-
are starting to be made for us. You can't travel on a plane. You can't go to a conference for work. You
Yeah.
can't eat in a restaurant. You can't go to the gym, right? Like, so that power is some sort of power that, government or society now has over us. Will they relinquish it? Like, if I have to carry a card 3 years from now that says I'm vaccinated in order to get into a ball game, to sit in the vaccinated section, it's going to suck. Right. And like, we're giving that power away because we're not taking the right steps as a society to, to not make that hand be forced. Right. Like, I don't see it any other way. Like, anybody that's holding off now because they don't want government to make their decisions for them. Okay, fine. Then you stay at home and I'll go out in public. You just don't get to leave your house. Right. Like, you've made your choice. I've made my choice. Like, one of us gets to be more free than the other. I don't see how that's irrational. Right. You don't own the restaurants. You don't own the schools. You don't own it. You own your house. That's your land. That's your property. Stay on it.
Right.
It's like, but you can't. you can't bitch and have it both ways, is what I'm saying. You can't bitch that you have to stay home. You can't bitch that we don't have a vaccination. Then when you have it, then you say, well, I want to go out, but well, you're not vaccinated, so you can't. Like you can't fucking play both sides of the argument. It just doesn't make sense.
Listen, you have to go into certain restaurants with a shirt and tie on. If you go into certain people's houses, they'll ask you to take your shoes off. I mean, if
Right.
you're going to somebody else's property, they can ask you to comply with whatever the request is, and you have the choice not to go.
But you
mean, that's
100%
just the
have a
reality.
choice not to go. Grill a steak in your backyard, drink as many beers as you want, and
That's
have
right.
whoever you want to come over to your house if that's the way
That's
you want
right.
to play it.
That's
The end
right.
of the day.
At the
All
end
right,
of the
buddy.
day,
I love you.
all
I
have
gotta
to sit
go.
out.
That was
Okay.
a hell of a pod. It's always fun talking to you. We'll have to talk more about my trip down there. It's coming up soon. So,
Okay, brother.
all right, buddy. Take care.
Talk to you. Bye.
Bye.